Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, this time of Game Week 23, and we've got 2 hours 20 minutes until the deadline, so let's lock in our squads, answer everything you need to know for this deadline, cover all the injuries, suspensions, you name it, and I've made my transfers as discussed in my team selection podcast. They were very early moves where I bought in Cody Gakpo and Trent Alexander-Arnold as part of a -4 hit. I sold Gabriel, which I can see going wrong already, and we'll see how Arsenal fare on later today. I'll give my predictions as well. There are some new graphics on screen, which I also showcased in that team selection podcast, and there's going to be more headed your way potentially. Keep your eyes peeled, and for UCL Fantasy, Matchday 7, well, Matchday 8 content, should I say, is on your way too. I'll be combining the wildcard and limitless videos into one, because essentially, I think with unlimited transfers in Matchday 9 and 11, the limitless and wildcard operate in the same vein, and you can't make substitutions for that. But we'll talk about UCL Fantasy when the time comes. Let's focus on FPL, and the reaction stream will also be coming up very soon, either today or maybe tomorrow. I'll keep you posted on that as well. Smash the like button if you enjoy my content, and subscribe to the channel. And let's kick things off with the first comment, which is by Jaren. Start 1, Harry Wilson, Gvardiol, 8 Nuri, Tsimikas. Is Tsimikas a good risk? He should start, but will he? I wouldn't take that risk personally. I think him and Robertson rotate fairly often. We've seen that even before Tsimikas' injury. You could say he's first choice, but I think they're going to split the minutes. And over the next 3 games against Ipswich Town, Bournemouth and Everton, I'd be very surprised if one of them started every single one of those matches. And there are cup games which will factor into that as well. As for your starting question, that's a difficult one. I would be tempted by Harry Wilson. Now, if Tsimikas... Yeah, Tsimikas is an interesting one, because I think he could be a decent one to start this week, but I couldn't guarantee you him getting the nod over Robertson in Ipswich Town, or against Ipswich Town this week, and then in the double. So it's between Wilson and Tsimikas for me. My current preference is with Wilson. Cyril says, if Spurs finish top 8 in the Europa League and go through to the Carabao Cup final, does that mean they will 100% double in 25? I'm not sure about 100%, but I think it becomes very likely, and this double in 25 is really dependent on Spurs reaching that Carabao Cup final. And as you say, finishing the top 8 only increases the chances because they skip those playoff rounds in the Europa League. So draft question, should I trade Dan Burn for Raul Jimenez? I have Botman too, but don't know if he'll be starting. That's a difficult one because, yeah, Dan Burn faces Southampton. I still think Southampton could score against Newcastle, to be fair. I'd rather have Jimenez. I'm not sure if I'd actively make that sort of switch, but it seems pretty decent. Yeah, you've got Botman too. I get that. I'd probably switch to Jimenez personally, but that's always a bit of a conundrum. You never know what you're going to get from Raul. Callum Jr. says, morning Dylan, a late thought is to do Sells to Alisson. Gives me 3 Liverpool players and can always bring Aina in for Robinson. Also don't think Pickford is better than Alisson due to fixtures. Fair enough. I personally think long-term Pickford is the best goalkeeper to buy right now. I still like Sells a lot, which is why I bought him in the first place. But yeah, I still prefer Pickford over Alisson, but I get why people are going for the Brazilian instead. I think Sells to Alisson's decent, and this is a nice time to buy any Liverpool player, including Alisson. So I'm not against that, to be fair. I think that's a fairly decent move. But yeah, in terms of my opinion on it, I still think Pickford is better longer term. So Cylindra says, hey Dylan, my team, 2.6 million in the bank, 3 transfers. Who should I buy and sell? And it's okay to captain Isak. Of course it's okay to captain Isak. He's facing the worst team in the Premier League, arguably, but I would also debate that in recent weeks, at least in Game Week 22, Ipswich Town were terrible defensively against Man City, and I think Southampton put up a decent fight against Forest. As for who you should sell and buy, I mean, difficult for me to say without knowing much context. I mean, I think what I'd look to do is, so you got Salah already, no other Everton or Liverpool players. Even something like Greaves or Kirkis to Mikalenko could be decent for you, or Raya to Pickford in Game Week 24. I would not be making that move this week, but that is like your Everton coverage sorted. You don't need both of them even, just one is fine. At the moment, I'd recommend Raya to Pickford in 24. That would be my personal preference. As for other Liverpool players, I mean, João Pedro to Gakpo could work. You got enough money in the bank, especially with Raya to Pickford, so that's something else you can do. And then to triple up on Liverpool, I'd highly recommend Trent Alexander-Arnold if you can, but otherwise, the likes of Van Dijk and Kanate are absolutely fine. Still not doing transfers yet due to budget. Need cheap midfielder to buy, especially for Double Gameweek 24. Well, I'm not going to recommend any budget midfielders from Everton. And for Liverpool, I mean, I mentioned McAllister and Szoboszlai briefly yesterday, but I'd rather go for Diaz. And then, of course, you've got the likes of Gakpo, Trent, Van Dijk, Konate, Alisson, and Salah. Those are the Liverpool players I'd look at instead. But in terms of just a cheap midfielder in general, I still like Rodgers, Amad Diallo. They're still right up there for me. And long term, I'd recommend the likes of Kluivert and Semenyo, but they're not the best purchases for the next two matches against Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. Welcome, Richard Minichip, and thank you very much. So, hey, Dylan, thanks for the great content and streams as always. Raya, Valdimarson, Trent, Aina, Hall, Munoz, THB, I'm probably being stupid there. Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Rodgers, Sarr, Isak, Wood, Cunha, 2 free transfers, 2 million in the bank. Any suggestions? So yeah, kind of similar to what I said to Sadindra. I think Raya to Pickford could be an option for you, but in Game Week 24, I would not be making that switch now. So you've got Trent and Salah. Fine, that's the 2 best Liverpool players and arguably the only 2 you need. But yeah, from Everton, Pickford's the best one. And if not, make a defender transfer like Tarkowski, Mikolenko, Ashley Young. All depends on your budget. And of course, you've got 2 million in the bank. But for this week specifically, I don't think there are many transfers that scream out to me. You might want that third Liverpool player, so maybe Cunha to Gakpo could work for you. I just think with Jota being out for the next couple of weeks, that does cement Gakpo a little bit more. Of course, Diaz could play on the left sometimes, and Gakpo gets benched, really, but we haven't seen that in the Premier League very often, especially in the last 10 games. But yeah, I think Cunha to Gakpo looks really good, and you can always reverse that transfer in Game Week 26 or go to a different forward entirely. Yeah, I'm not sure about that easy 99. I mean, we discussed this briefly in the last reaction stream. I don't think any games will be postponed, to be fair. I mean, right now in London, for example, it's quite sunny, but FPL Diamond says like, share, subscribe, support your quality channel as you continue to get brilliant content on a consistent basis. Thank you for the kind words and good luck for Game Week 23. FPL Kevy says, hey bro, hope you're okay. Likewise, Semenyo, Rodgers, Wissa, Milenkovic, I have to bench 2. I would look to bench Milenkovic, and then it's extremely tough, but I would consider benching Semenyo. We all know how that's probably going to turn out. He scored against Forest back in Game Week 1, but I'd definitely bench Milenkovic out of those 4. Then it's very difficult to really weigh up the other 3, but I'd probably go for Semenyo. Morning to you as well, JP. Bench 1 out of Robinson, Hall, Wood, and Rodgers. Interesting one. I would consider benching Robinson from those 4. Gordon to Mbeumo in Game Week 24? Possibly. Yeah, I think that's a decent shout in terms of how the fixtures swing, but I still like Gordon against Fulham at home and even for the other fixtures afterwards, but I would not be surprised if that transfer flops for me. As for Brian Mbeumo, yeah, I think it's a set and forget option in that midfield, so I get that. But yeah, at the moment I lean towards yes, but it's not an absolute must transfer, if you get my drift. When would Bowen become a 90-minute man again? Best guess? Game Week 25. I mean, he might be eased back into things. It'll be his first game under Graham Potter when he does make his return. I think it'll become a very interesting option, but for now, I would just watch from afar, and once you see him get healthy minutes, could be off the bench, then I'd start maybe getting prepared to make that transfer. But with West Ham, it's always a bit of inconsistency. FPL Glory Algeria says, hey Dylan, I did Gabriel to Trent. Yeah, same here, unfortunately. Rank 10k, nicely done. I have another free transfer, so I'm thinking if I play Verbruggen and roll or sell Sanchez, already benching him to Alisson Pickford. Well, I would recommend that sort of upgrade anyway. Verbruggen had a decent start this season, and Sanchez, by the way, was really good at the beginning. I would make a switch in the goalkeeper position. It's not like critical, but I think it does improve your team for Double Game at 24. I'd go to Pickford personally, but I know a lot of people are kind of keen on Alisson. I get that. I think either one's an upgrade on what you have, so my answer would be yes. If you were to make a goalkeeper move this week, though, Alisson's the best one because he faces Ipswich Town at home, whilst Pickford faces Brighton away. But for Game Week 24, if I'm buying a goalkeeper, from that point, I'd go for Pickford. Isak or Salah captain? It's close, but I'm going for Salah at the moment for the reasons discussed in my team selection video. I'll probably delve into it a little bit more later with the different stats that I normally show. Yeah, you can see my captain on screen, Baraf. It's currently Salah. I don't see myself changing it, but Isak is definitely not too far away. Let's put it that way. Hi, Dylan. Should I start Rodgers or Joao Pedro? I would start No, I'd start Rodgers. It's very close. Yeah, I'd go for Rodgers at the moment. Trini says, greetings Dylan and everyone on the live stream. Semenyo or Rodgers? Thank you. Slight preference for Rodgers this week, but it's always difficult kind of starting one and benching the other on a weekly basis. I think both of them are fairly fixture-proof, especially in the case of Semenyo, who returns when you least expect him to. Yeah, best Liverpool asset behind Salah is Trent, which I've made very clear in the last couple of videos. If you had to pick a third, it's between Van Dijk and Gakpo, and that ultimately depends on your team situation. Do you need to replace a defender or make an upgrade in the forward line? I'd rather have Gakpo, but it's more of a high-risk, high-reward pick, if you can even call it that. Van Dijk is just safe, very good double gimmick option. I might regret not going for him in the end. Yeah, he's got a pretty good record in these doubles. Barav says I'm at 3 million started after Game Week 2. That's pretty good, to be fair. I mean, you missed an entire week. I want to push my rank. Should I captain Isak over Salah? Only if you genuinely believe Isak can match or outscore Salah. I mean, ultimately, I always say this is kind of simple, but people sometimes go differential for the sake of it. They're like, yeah, I actually don't think Isak will outscore Salah, but I'm going for it just to make up ground. I get it, because you want to do something different, and if it pays off, I mean, look at Isak against Wolves a couple of weeks ago. That could really lead to a big haul. I think it's a nice opportunity to go against Salah with Isak, but I personally feel Salah will outscore him. That's why I'm going for Salah, not because everyone else is doing it. But I get your question. It's just only go for that sort of move if you genuinely believe Isak can do the business. Terry says, play one of Ahmad, Robinson and Rodgers. Rodgers for me. Aliston Fernandez says, my wildcard team for this week: Sells, Fabianski, Trent, Gabriel, Kirkes, Milenkovic, Mikalenko, Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Mbumo, Semenyo, Wood, Visser, Isak. So 1.8 million in the bank. I like the team, to be fair. It's very solid. I would consider going away from double Forest defence, though, because they face Bournemouth, Brighton and Fulham in the next three. Afterwards, they face the likes of Arsenal, Man City. You've got Ipswich Town in Game Week 29, which is going to be a blank game week, and that's very useful, but I'd consider moving Sells to Pickford. I mean, you've got Mikalenko already, that's fine, but that's an upgrade, I think, for the short term, and possibly up until Game Week 29. And if not, maybe Milenkovic you could sell if you decide to keep Matt Sells in goal, but I would recommend that personally. Just kind of something I'd have in terms of a personal preference. The front line looks really solid. I like the look of it. Doubling up on Brentford defensively looks fine. Bournemouth asset in place in the midfield, Semenyo, Kluivert. I would rather go for Kluivert, but there's not much of a difference, and you could argue from open play Semenyo offers a bigger threat, at least on a more consistent basis. So yeah, really my only advice in terms of like what I'd change is going away from double Forest defensively, but that's completely up to you. If you're bullish on them, that's absolutely fine. Welcome, Mohit. Who to start, Sarr or Ahmad or Kirkes? Very close one. I mean, fixtures-wise, Sarr is probably the most appealing, but yeah, it's kind of a difficult one here. I'd probably go for Ahmad out of the three. Diaz or Szoboszlai? It's going to be Diaz. I mentioned this, I'm not sure how many minutes ago, but probably around 5-10 minutes ago at this point. Yeah, I think Diaz is my preference in the midfield over McAllister and Szoboszlai. Konate or Gakpo? It's going to be Gakpo for me. So, I mentioned this earlier. Salah's the first one, then it's Trent. Then for the third best option, it's going to be between Gakpo and Van Dijk. And I think Konate is a level below those two. That's the way I'd kind of rank them. People in the chat, don't forget to like the stream. Thank you, Mohit. I appreciate it. And also to FPL Diamond. Let's see. There's a lot of questions and comments coming in. Let's plug away at the likes. And yeah, thank you to those that have been tuning in from the get-go. Let's see. How many of you are captaining Isak as differential? That's a great question by Mohit. Penguino says start Ahmad or Joao Pedro. Ahmad. Very close one, though. And Solar Wind, yeah, I'm going to stick with my answer from before. I'd rather start Rodgers over Joao Pedro. You can triple captain Salah today, but why use it now compared to the double? I mean, you could say it's a better fixture, fair enough, but I always prefer double game week. I mean, that's a differential play. Let's put it that way. And if you are feeling it, back your gut. Play FPL the way you want to. If it's me, I'd rather use it in Game Week 24. Chris El Famoso, good to see you. For my girlfriend, okay, interesting, nice. Alisson, Fabianski, Munoz, Virgil, Timber, Hall, Pedro Porro, Gordon, Palmer, Salah, Rodgers, Gay, Isak, Wood, and Jackson. Bench boost? I get that. I mean, let's kind of break it down. Who would be on the bench? I mean, it's ultimately about having your 50-man squad contribute, but I'm not completely against it. I know it's an Everton double gameweek asset and you wouldn't sell them now, but I'm not a big fan of Idrissa Gana Gueye, despite the returns against Spurs last week. But would I bench boost that? My gut feeling is no. I could be wrong about that, though. It's not a bad bench. It's not a bad bench. I've got Diaz in my team already with free transfers. Should I transfer him and Wood out for Mbeumo and Gakpo? I'm not so sure if that's absolutely necessary. I get what you're doing, and as a duo, I will admit, I do like Mbeumo and Gakpo, but Chris Wood is fixture-proof. I wouldn't want to sell him if possible. As for Diaz, I can see him getting one big return over the next 3 matches. I'd probably keep for now, but I get what you're saying. Interesting way of looking at it. You might be right, Tam. I think as a short-term punt, Gakpo is one of my favourite forwards, but if we look beyond Game Week 25, he starts to drop down the rankings. I think you are correct about that, to highlight that issue. So I'd say, yeah, he's a really good option on paper until Game Week 25. Then he kind of becomes meh, like a decent choice, but there are better, like Chris Wood. Welcome, Trini. So yeah, I'd rather start Rodgers over Semenyo. Morning, Alex. Hopefully you are doing well too. Good to see you as always. FPL Diamond says Trent, assist, goal. Huge haul. Salah, 1 attack and return, penalty. Trent, Son, Isak outscores Salah. Trust me. Let's bookmark this tweet, as they say. Mohit says, I too am considering Nwaneri as a punt to free up funds elsewhere. That's not a bad shout. He is back from injury. Made a cameo off the bench against Dynamo Zagreb, and I think that'll be massive for Arsenal. Surely he's first choice on the right over Sterling. So, yeah, at the moment I'm going Salah captain. Insane Gamer says I'm going Isak. Good luck. I think that looks really enticing. Like I said, if I were to maybe like have a late change of heart and I want to go against Salah, Isak would be my, well, next in line, should I say. Hi Dylan, start Konsa or Kirkes. Never a big fan of Konsa, if I'm being honest. I'd rather go for Kirkes. Munoz, Aina or Kirkes? Extremely difficult one. Munoz has the most attacking threat, but yeah, 2 back-to-back clean sheets. Yeah, fair enough, but I'm not really backing one here. I would rather go for Aina out of the 3, but Bournemouth are a decent side. I think Gakpo will start. I mean, he was benched against Lille the other day, so yeah, that's been covered. Gakpo's rested against Lille. Yeah, same with Trent. And I made those transfers before that lineup even came out. Otherwise, I was going to be priced out. If I waited until now to make those moves of Jackson to Gakpo and Gabriel to Trent, I would be 0.3 million off. So yeah, I had to make those moves early. Should I play the wild card? I don't know your team. I don't know how much budget you have, how many free transfers, how many double gameweek players you have. I don't know anything about your squad, so it's impossible for me to say. For most people, I recommend saving the wild card for later in the season, but I don't know about your specific situation. Cylindra says, thanks Dylan, I have enough cash to do Robinson to Trent. Is it worth it? I think so, and I like Robinson a lot, but I do think it's an upgrade, so yeah, I'm not completely against it. Start 3, Robinson, Milenkovic, Munoz, Timber. Out of those 4, I'd potentially bench... I think I'd potentially bench Robinson. It's a very difficult one. I think Timber's got the best chance of a clean sheet, but Arsenal on their travels haven't been great. And in the Premier League, it's been a while since they kept the clean sheet, but it's not a bad one on paper, especially if Cunha misses out, although I don't think that'll be the case. Yeah, I think Diaz can still start. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, will he start the next 3 matches? Not necessarily, but his chances have been boosted with that injury to Jota. Bench 1 of Sarr, JP or Rodgers. I'd consider Sarr on the bench here. Yeah, I think Sarr on the bench. Good fixture, though, for attackers, Brentford. Hey, Dylan, would you start Sarr versus Brentford or Real versus United or Semenyo? I think I'd start Semenyo over Sarr, even though he's got a tougher game on paper. It's not much in it, though. And look, Sarr isn't a terrible FPL option, but it was a mistake for me to buy him in the first place, if I look back on it. Now, those 3 options, Jimenez against United is a decent shout. I'd consider Jimenez. Bench 1, Joao Pedro or Ahmad. I'd bench Ahmad. Out of these 3, who would you start? Joao Pedro, Robinson or Ahmad? A lot of similar questions here. Yeah, I'd start Joao Pedro out of the three. Isak to Gakpo next week. I have only that transfer and it would add to my bad budget. I wouldn't recommend that. I'd rather keep Isak. I know he's really expensive. He's 9.5 million now, but yeah, despite blanking in Gameweek 29, unless Arsenal make a miraculous comeback in the Carabao Cup, I still don't think that's enough reason for me to recommend selling Isak. I mean, if you can go back to him easily, you could consider it, but I think on paper, I'd recommend not doing it. No team leaks at the moment. Akash says, up the Gunners. Yeah, hopefully they don't let me down for once. Currently thinking of doing these next week, says Benguino. Gordon to Rodgers, Joao Pedro to Gakpo, and Sells to Pickford. Yeah, all transfers are pretty good. Gordon to Rodgers is to facilitate the other moves. I get it. I'm on board with it. I think that looks fairly decent. You could also go for Amad Diallo instead of Rodgers, or perhaps Semenyo/Kluivert, which might be the best budget midfielder to invest in long-term, because Bournemouth have excellent long-term fixtures. So, yeah, really good transfers. Just consider maybe a difference of budget midfielder, but Rodgers is solid, dependable. You're going to get consistency from him at that price. So, out of these three, bench one, says Dorniak. I'd consider benching Amad out of the three. Somewhat reluctantly, should I add. Bench one, says Carl, Wissa, Pedro, Guimaraes. Oof. I mean, as an FPL asset, I think Bruno Guimaraes is a level below the other two. I think this is the best of the three, personally. So I'd definitely start him. It's a great fixture for Newcastle, though. I don't like saying it, but I'd probably bench Bruno Guimaraes. Yeah. And it's a great fixture, though. So if you decide to go against my advice, I do not blame you. Murphy versus Sarr. I prefer Jacob Murphy, but I'm not entirely sure what his injury situation is right now. Maybe there is an update, which I haven't seen. But there is a chance he doesn't start. I think he's been cleared, actually. Yeah, he might have been cleared. I just didn't see it pop up. So, yeah, I'd go for Jacob Murphy, personally. Humbug BAA says, morning. Bench one, Murphy or Sarr, please. Yeah, I would start Jacob Murphy and bench Sarr. Adnan says, start free. Yeah, I covered that earlier, didn't I? Yeah, I covered that. KFC Boy with a similar one. Start free, Aina, Lewis, Hall, Robinson, Kanate. Yeah, Kanate, who also was rested against Lille. So I think he starts here. Lewis, Hall. And the third one is close. I might suggest Aina here. I think Lewis is at the bottom. It's between Robinson and Aina for that last spot, and I think Aina's got a slightly better chance of a clean sheet, but Robinson at the same time has the assist for it. I might have to kind of revisit that answer, because I did answer other similar questions in terms of Robinson versus Aina, Milenkovic, etc. I might recommend Robinson in the end, just to add, but definitely start Hall and Kanate. Definitely. No doubts about that. Thank you, Benguino. And good to see a lot of questions coming in. Let's whiz through these. Hi, Dylan. Should I do Verbruggen and JP to Pickford and Gakpo this week or next? I would do Joao Pedro to Gakpo this week, and next week I do Verbruggen to Pickford. I don't think you need to do both in Game Week 23 or 24. You can kind of spread them out. One transfer this week, one the next, and I think that's the best way when looking at the fixtures and different circumstances. Let me know what you think. Thoughts on Semenyo to Mbumo this week, says Anna. Then keeping Gordon instead of doing Gordon to Mbumo next week. I like Mbumo. I think he's an upgrade, but there is a big difference in price, and it could cause some problems for you in the future. And buying Gordon for me recently has also caused similar issues. But I do like what you're saying there. To keep Gordon, who I think is still one of the best midfielders in the game, especially on recent form. So yeah, I would consider doing something like that. But Bournemouth have excellent fixtures starting from Game Week 25. And that's where a lot of people will start investing in Semenyo and Kluivert. So you might find yourself actually going back to those Bournemouth midfielders or attackers fairly soon. But I do like what you're saying right now. Best defender for 5.2 million. I'd say Kanate with that double in 24. After that double is finished, I think it changes slightly, but for now, I think Kanate is the standout. Rodgers or Wood? Chris Wood. Welcome, Arthur. I went Palmer to Son, Foden to Gordon, Gvardiol to Trent, and Lewis to Mikalenko, no hit. Wow. I mean, no need to be sorry, mate, but selling Palmer, I'm not in agreement with. It does fund other moves potentially, but I could see Palmer doing well against City. I'm actually more bullish on him now than I was yesterday. Looking at the press conference for Man City, I think they've got one available centre-back, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think Palmer could do really well. Mitoma or Kulusevski or Eze? Mitoma's been brilliant recently, getting the goals and the assists. Kulusevski, I mean, he's been Spurs' best player this season. Amazing goal against Everton, I have to say. And Eze's been churning out some consistent goal contributions in the last 4 matches. I think Eze is my favourite this week. But to be fair, Kulusevski against Leicester is very enticing as well. Very difficult one. I mean, is the question to start one out of the 3, to buy one of them? I think that also influences the answer. But for this week specifically, I would have a preference for Eze. Which 2 from Rodgers, Ahmad, Wood to bench, says RMM. I'd bench Ahmad and Rodgers and start Chris Wood. Yeah, thank you, Alex. When's your favourite week to use the AM chip? Gameweek 24 is still a decent opportunity for people, either on David Moyes if you want that high-risk, high-reward approach, or you go for the safe option of Arne Slot, especially if you're struggling to get to free Liverpool, or you're not entirely sure about Gakpo and Diaz and you want to have a more secure option. But I think ultimately a double Gameweek is probably the best time to use it. I think between Gameweek 31 to 33 could be a very popular time to also activate the chip, and Gameweek 36. So that's kind of like the 3 windows I'm looking at. In my case, Gameweek 24 will be very unlikely unless I make a bit of money available for David Moyes. I've already tripled up on Liverpool, so it won't be Arne Slot in 24 for me. Gameweek 31 to 33, and then 36 to 38. But just bear in mind, if you are using the AM chip later in the season, do not save it for Gameweek 37 because that chip is used for 3 game weeks. The chip will be active for that period. If you use it in 37, you're only going to get 2 weeks out of potentially the best chip in the game. So yeah, 36 is the latest I would use it, and it might be the best actually. Good morning. Bench 1 in Mbumo, Ahmad, Joao Pedro, or Chris Wood? Probably Ahmad, unfortunately. Is captaining Haaland crazy? I mean, look, it's kind of weird how things have changed, right, with Haaland. I personally wouldn't go there. He scored against PSG and Ipswich Town recently, but there aren't massive returns there. He's scoring 1 goal, and City are scoring, 8 goals in that time? He's got 2 of them. I'd rather go for Salah and Isak. I think both teams are in better form than Man City, and also those players have been delivering really big returns, whilst Haaland isn't doing that. And it's a more difficult fixture against Chelsea. I personally wouldn't go there, but I don't think it's absolutely crazy. Welcome one, Ahida. Good morning, Dylan. Hope you're doing well. Start 2 in Mbumo, Rodgers, and Gabriel. I think I'd bench Rodgers here and start Gabriel and Mbumo. Aina or Jackson? Probably Aina at this point. Jackson's very unreliable. He is facing a depleted Man City defence, though. Lewis and Jackson to Kanate and Gakpo for free. Yeah, I'm on board with it. I've said before, I prefer Trent and Van Dijk if you can afford it, but otherwise Kanate is absolutely fine. Is it worth to buy Daniel Munoz for investment to price up? I like Munoz as a long-term option. He'll likely blank in 29 though, so just factor that into your thinking. If you're fine with that, then I don't think it's a terrible transfer. I don't see a clean sheet against Brentford this week though. Music says, my team ain't looking that good this week. Sometimes it can surprise you. Your team looks terrible and it does well, or it might look amazing and it does really poorly. Yeah, don't be too worried about it. Good morning, mate. Hope all is well. Bench Diaz or Rodgers or Joao Pedro? I will not be benching Diaz. I'd probably bench Joao Pedro from the free. Very close call, though. I think all of them are capable of a return this week. Do you think Nwaneri will start? It's possible. But there is also the chance that Arsenal kind of ease him back in and they put Martinelli on the right, Trossard left, and Havertz up front. So if I had to guess, I'd say no, but I have been wrong about this in the past with Nwaneri. Potentially Marmoush debut today. Yeah, I was asked about my prediction for his price and position. I got the price right, but not the position. I thought he'd be a midfielder, but makes sense. He plays anywhere alongside the front line. I thought potentially he could be out of position, and that would make him interesting. Want to monitor, but I wouldn't be investing right now. Start Raul or Ismail Assar? Probably Jimenez. Very close one, though, and I think Jimenez is a bit of a troll, actually. JP says, how do you expect the Robinson and Ahmad matchup to conclude? I have both and don't know who to start. Or I could bench both and get in a Liverpool defender, Trent or Van Dijk. It'd be Trent without a shadow of a doubt. Van Dijk is the safer option in terms of minutes, and he's got a good record in double game weeks, but Trent's got the highest ceiling. If you've got the money, that'd be my preference. So, yeah, ultimately, that is probably the answer to your question. As for how Ahmad versus Robinson will kind of end up, I'd rather start Ahmad out of the two, but Robinson has more avenues to points, you could say, in terms of the clean sheet, which is, I don't think, impossible for Fulham this week. And then he's got the assist for it. Of course, Ahmad's got the goals and the assists, but he's more of a creator, I think, in that United team, especially since last season. But of course, in this campaign, he is racking up the goals more consistently. Is Cole Palmer worth his price, with Kluivert, Eze and Semenyo doing well recently? I still think so. Palmer hasn't been at his absolute best, I think. One thing I've probably noticed about him this season is that he produces a massive return, and maybe he's been blanking more often than last campaign. I'd have to double check that though. I might be completely off the mark there. But it was pretty fairly recently actually that he got back-to-back double-digit hauls. So yeah, look, Palmer's still worth the money for me. Start one, Aina or Munoz. Slight preference for Aina. I think Brentford score. Rodgers, Wood, and Boomer bench 1. As mentioned before, I'd probably bench Rodgers there. Best 5.4 million mid for Saar as I'm bringing in Trent. It's a shame that McNeil isn't a factor. He is going to have surgery, I believe, so he's out for Game Week 24. I'd still look at... Yeah, I think... Wait, you said below... No, best 5.4 million mid. I need to double check this price quickly. Yeah, Ahmad has risen up too much. He was 5.4 like 2 weeks ago. No longer the case. Rodgers as well, 5.6. I like Murphy, but I'm not sure if I'd buy him in right now. I mean, Southampton away, great entry point, but yeah, that's kind of awkward. So I'm going to have a look at anything I can find in the midfield position at that price and see. Because a lot has changed in the terms of the market, in terms of prices. Elanga's okay. Yeah, it's kind of a difficult one to kind of enter. Harry Wilson as a differential has been mentioned on this channel before. I'm not completely against it, but you're kind of scraping down the bottom of the barrel here. It's not as appealing as Rodgers, Ahmad, who I've been recommending for quite some time when they were priced at this, threshold that you're talking about, 5.4 million and below. So yeah, it's probably going to be between Jacob Murphy, Elanga. Jorginho Rota isn't terrible. I would not be going for Enzo Fernandez. He could be back this weekend against Man City, but Lavia could be out for some time, actually, and I don't think that bodes well for Chelsea assets, particularly Enzo Fernandez. Before I go back to your questions, there are a lot of them in the chat. Let's go to some different screens. So let's kick things off with the FDR. Okay, no, apparently it's bugging out here. So yeah, let's change this to Game Week 29. So yeah, Spurs are top of the FDR. Fulham, Liverpool, Everton and Crystal Palace are in the top 5. But it does factor in a potential double for Spurs and Fulham in Game Week 25, and that depends on Spurs reaching the Carabao Cup final and yada yada yada. As for the bottom 5, we've got Man City, Nottingham Forest, West Ham, Leicester and Ipswich Town. With predicted points, Salah is top with Isak second, which is pretty much our thinking this week. Haaland, Palmer, Watkins, Trent, Foden, Son, De Bruyne, Diaz are in the top 10. As for projected price changes, and this will probably vary as we get closer to the time that the changes actually happen, they've gone for Kluivert, Gakpo, Trent, Kirkes, Gordon, Hall, Sells, Wood and Burn all going up in price tonight, which would be nice. I've got a lot of these players actually. As for price falls, Nicholas Jackson, Saliba, Savio, Evanilson, Christensen, Robert Sanchez, Enzo, Johnson, Vardy, Anana, that's Andre Anana, Mario, so that's Mario Lemina, Lancashire, Kelleher, Nkuku, Ismail Assar, Badiashile, Cucurella, Irving, Mezraoui, Ruddy, and there's going to be a few more here, Decordova Reed, Whiteman, Lewis, Fass, and Ben White, who is nearing a return for the Gunners. Finally, some positive news on that front. Drafttown are recommending these players for the next 3 game weeks. So Salah, Trent, Diaz are in the top 3, with Palmer, Gakpo, Isak, Foden, McAllister, Haaland, and Van Dijk in the top 10. Let's now go to a stats comparison of the two best captains, arguably, for Game Week 23, Salah and Isak. Salah's going to lead in most of these metrics. More shots on target, more goals, more assists. Everything is pretty much in Salah's favour. But Isak has been really impressive in the last 8 games. Of course, he had that streak, which came to an end against Bournemouth. If we actually changed the parameters and look from, let's say, Game Week 14 or Game Week 13, well, Isak's got more goals. And even in terms of XG, very identical, one more big chance. It all depends on how you want to kind of compare the two, but over the course of the season, Salah will come out on top against pretty much anyone you compare him to. And he has dipped slightly in recent weeks, but against Lille in the Champions League, he won Player of the Match, scored a brilliant goal from outside the box, and I think Salah is a top captaincy option against Ipswich Town, who just shipped in 6 goals against Man City. Let's have a sneak preview of Game Week 24, which I covered in my team selection video yesterday. So I could take another -4 hit next week and go for Pickford and Mikalenko, and it would be sells, and in this case, it could be either Colwill or Veltman making way, and I've got 0.1 million left in the bank. That means I'd have 5 double game week players. Not enough money, though, for David Moyes as the assistant manager chip, and also for Arne Slot. It's just not really an option for me now, as I've tripled up with Liverpool with my 2 moves this week, buying Trent and Gakpo in the process. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and yeah. Last thing to show you before I go back to my team, and towards the end, by the way, I will talk about my predictions for Game Week 23. Let's go to FPL Challenge. And I haven't made a team yet, but this week it's called Instant Impact. So players signed in the January transfer window earn double points. Maybe Marmoush could be an enticing choice, but I'll probably make this team later on. I haven't actually given it any thought whatsoever. And last week was terrible. I got 14 points. Not too surprising, actually. But let's go back to my FPL team, which wasn't as bad, somehow, despite the red arrow. Liverpool won, Ipswich won. I wouldn't mind. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't mind, but yeah. Rumours on X that Isak is having a late fitness test. He was feeling unwell. I appreciate the update. If you've got a link, drop it in the chat and we'll have a look. But yeah, the plot thickens, you could say. That's certainly not going to help my case of maybe considering going against Salah. I just don't see anybody else coming close to him, at least on paper. So, thank you to those that have dropped a like already. Let's get this stream to over 200. It'd be massively appreciated. We've got some new graphics, of course, in this stream and in the last video yesterday. And they could be more headed your way. But, yeah, calma, of course. Calma. Good day, Dylan. Good to see you, Lager. Sanchez, Timber, Trent, Hall, Milenkovic, Palmer, Gordon, Salah, KDB, Chris Wood and Isak, 2 free transfers and 1.1 million in the bank. Fabianski, Strand Larsen, O'Shea and Dibbling on the bench. Thoughts? So you've got some really good assets in there, but I would consider a change of goalkeeper fairly soon. I think Sanchez to Pickford stands out to me in Game Week 24. You've already got 2 Liverpool players, which is fine. You might even consider Sanchez to Alisson, which I don't blame you for anyway. I have to say with your bench, Strand Larsen's okay, but the other 2 are quite weak options on paper. Now, I've had a lot of bench points this season because arguably my bench has been too strong, so it's not always a good thing, you could say. But ultimately, I do like your starting 11. It is pretty solid, but Sanchez is the weak link. It might not seem like very optimal, you could say, but I'd make a goalkeeper transfer. As for KDB, some decent returns recently, but that could be a cash cow for you, which enables you to do Strand Larsen to Gakpo, as one example, or maybe upgrade one of your defenders, which could even be O'Shea, up to Van Dijk or Konate. And that could be your way of tripling up on Liverpool, but yeah, it might require selling KDB, going to a cheaper choice, and then upgrading Sanchez to one of Alisson or Pickford, and my preference will be with the Everton shot stopper. Yeah, as covered before, Easy 99, Salah is my preference for me, and I covered the stats just now, so yeah, of course, everyone's got their own opinion. I think if you look at the last 8-9 game weeks, Isak has been even more impressive in front of goal. But in terms of underlying stats, Salah is pretty much always neck and neck, if not superior in most aspects. Start Murphy or Ahmad? Murphy. After the double and Wolves, should I sell one of Konate or Trent? Yeah. And ideally you'd keep Trent, but he might be your cash cow, to fund other moves. So it all depends when we get to it, but I'd certainly sell one of them. Yeah. Start Salah, Aina, or Joao Pedro. Probably Joao Pedro. Robinson or Aina? Probably Robinson for me. I did say Aina earlier. I think he's got a slightly better chance of a clean sheet, but I think the form Bournemouth are in. Yeah, I think they get a goal against Forest. Start Rodgers or JP? Rodgers. Buy Kerkez or Howson? Slight preference for Kerkez, but Howson will score more goals, and when he does, he gets these 14, 15 pointers like he did against Tottenham and Man United. I just think Kerkez will give you more consistency with the attacking threat, especially for assists. ARX says, hi Dylan, I'm planning to do Raul to Gakpo and Foden to someone, max 7.4 million with 2 free transfers, so I can do Gabriel to Trent next week. What mid should I go for? Yeah, Trossard's been in really good form actually, I'm not going to lie. He got the assist off the bench against Dynamo Zagreb. He also got 2 assists against Villa, and he scored in the North London derby, but I still wouldn't go there. I'm just kind of put off any Arsenal attacker right now because they've literally got 3 or 4 options who've been playing week in, week out, and they're quite blunt in attack at times. Eze, I'd be more keen on, out of the 2. Other options at 7.4 million and below, I mean, it'd be Ahmad, Rodgers, right? Yeah, I think Eze would be the one out of the 2. Ahmad or Hudson-Odoi? Well, Hudson-Odoi is a doubt anyway, with a tight, I think, hamstring problem. I need to double check the exact injury, but he is a doubt. I'd rather go for Ahmad anyway. I mean, Fulham isn't an easy game, but neither is Bournemouth. Good morning, Dylan. Is it a priority to get Trent in if I already have Van Dijk? It's ideal. It's a luxury. I don't think it's essential. If you've got Van Dijk, I think you're pretty well set. But yeah, I've said this repeatedly. If you are looking to get the best Liverpool free for the double, I think Trent will be second, only behind Salah. How many percentages that Gakpo potentially be on the bench with Cup and 2 games in the short couple of days next week? It's not a guarantee he starts every single game. And I've never been under any illusion that he's going to just start. Like, there's no issues there at all. But over the last 10 matches in the Prem, he has started all of them. And with that big gap, I think a lot depends obviously on those lineups in the Cups. But based on what we've seen recently, I think Gakpo will start in the league more often than not. And in the Cups, he won't do. And if that's the case, he's got a great chance of actually getting the nod in 2 of the next 3 or potentially all 3. But it's never a guarantee. Would you start Chris Wood or Joao Pedro? Chris Wood. What would the plan be if I triple up on Liverpool, though, when it comes to the AM chip? As mentioned before, to use it later in the season. You can even use it on David Moyes, by the way, in 24. That could be a shout, but Gimmick 31 to 33. Maybe Gimmick 35 or 36. So, for example, if you use it on 35, you can get a really good fixture for Pep. A potential double, which includes Southampton away, and then you get Bournemouth at home. Like, there are a lot of opportunities, I think, but you could say in terms of windows, it's maybe more limiting than you would originally think. You can always use it in single game weeks, but, like, for example, I mentioned Game Week 31. So that will be a single game week, so will Game Week 32. But the last kind of game week for that free game week period of the assistant managership will be a double in Game Week 33. So there are different ways of playing it, but I'd highly recommend including a double when activating it. Would you start Rodgers if you had him? Well, in terms of compared to my attackers, I don't think so, no. Maybe over Chris Wood is a debate, but I certainly wouldn't start him over Salah, Isak, Palmer, Gordon, no. So it's probably no. Bench 1, Martinelli, Rodgers, Sarr. I'd potentially bench Sarr. I mean, Martinelli has been fairly decent recently for Arsenal. And he was really good against Dynamo Zagreb. Yeah, it is tough. I'd definitely start Rodgers from the free. And then I'd probably lean towards Martinelli over Ismaila Sarr. Ahmad or Hudson-Odoi? Ahmad. Ali says bench 1 of Gabriel, Hall, Munoz, Trent, and Van Heck. It's probably going to be... Yeah, it's between Munoz and Van Heck to bench there. Probably Van Heck on the bench because you're relying on a clean sheet. 6 points is kind of the ceiling. Of course, if you back a Brighton clean sheet, then go against my advice, but it's probably going to be Van Heck. Hello, Dylan. Start Rodgers or Sarr? Rodgers. I would also start Rodgers over Elanga. Sells to Allison or Cunha to Gakpo? Cunha to Gakpo. Diallo or Kluivert? Ahmad this week. Captaincy Haaland. I need to chase rank, 5 million overall. Yeah, look, it's kind of similar to what I said earlier when someone asked about should I captain Isak. And believe it or not, you're not the first person to ask about captaining Haaland in this stream. I don't think it's a terrible idea. And Chelsea will concede chances, but it's just, if I look at the recent games, Haaland scored in the last two, but Man City have scored multiple goals in those matches, particularly against Ipswich Town, and he got 1 goal. That's not particularly impressive to me. And you've got the likes of Salah and Isak with better underlying stats, more avenues to points, you could argue, playing in better teams with a better fixture. So I'd personally go in that direction. You might even want to go for Isak, although there are some rumours apparently on Twitter of him not feeling particularly well. I need to double check that. But yeah, with Captaincy Haaland, I'm not completely against it. He'd be in the top 10, I think, when ranking the captaincy options. But yeah, don't just go for it for the sake of being different. If you really believe you can do well, then I think it's not a bad shout, but don't force it, is what I'd be saying. Raya or Pickford? This week, Raya. I'd make the switch to Pickford in Gameweek 24. Raul or Watkins? Watkins. Diaz or Bruno? Diaz. Bench one of Munoz, Wood, Robinson. It's probably going to be Daniel Munoz here, but it is close. Chris Wood definitely starts, no matter what. Start Rodgers or Bruno, and start Robinson or Munoz. Probably Rodgers and Robinson for me. Adnan says for the double, Salah plus Gakpo, Kanate, or Salah, DCL, Trent, or Salah, DCL, Kanate, Arne, slot. But it also depends like what the alternatives would be in each position. So if you go for Salah, Gakpo, and Kanate, you know, what's the other players in your squad compared to Salah, DCL, Trent? But on the face of it, my favourite way of approaching this, DCL, I'm not a big fan of him. Let me just put it out there. Definitely not. It's probably going to be Salah, Gakpo, Kanate from what you've said. They're all good. I mean, look, if you're kind of asking who's going to score the most points, it's probably going to be the last one with Arne Slot, but could you use the AM chip in a better way later in the season? I think it's possible. So yeah, I'd stick with the first three. How bad will it be to bench Chris Wood? It's always going to be quite risky. I've done it a few times this season and I've mainly been burned. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tough game for him, but he did score back in Gameweek 1 against the same opponent. Bringing Gakpo, depends who you're selling, what the context of your team is, but I wouldn't mind that. I think Gakpo's a nice option for the double. Start Rodgers or Bruno and start Robinson or Munoz. Yeah, that's been covered. What do you think about using Assistant Manager on Gameweek 24? I briefly covered this earlier. It's not a bad option, but I'm probably going to wait until later in the season. I mean, I've tripled up on Liverpool already. There is the alternative of using it on David Moyes, but I'd like to see how it works, you know, this season first and kind of have an example of the points we're going to see on show. But I just think if you use it later in the campaign, you'll have more information. You'll know by that stage if you want to go aggressive and, you know, go for the jugular or play conservative, protect your rank. But yeah, Gameweek 24 is not a bad time to use it. I definitely recommend activating it during a double game week, or at least having one of the game weeks where the chip is active, yeah, where the double is also in play. Is Colwell for Pedro Porro a good transfer? I wouldn't be buying Pedro Porro, but selling Cole was the right idea. I just wouldn't be going for a Spurs defender. Go early on triple up on Liverpool or hold and get free transfers for next week. I'd rather go early with Liverpool because of that fixture this week against Ipswich Town, where I think Liverpool will run riot, actually. Especially it being at Anfield. So, yeah, that'd be my take on it. Just going to deal with some spammers here. So, yeah, thank you to those that have supported the channel, those that dropped a like, subscribed, all that good stuff. If you haven't already, consider doing so, especially if you enjoyed the content or found it insightful. But, yeah, let's keep the conversation going. We have answered a lot of your questions already, but there might be a few that have been unanswered. Let's get to them. Start Cunha or Sarr? I'd go for Ismaila Sarr. I think with Cunha, a lot of Wolves fans have pointed towards the fact that his head's not really there. He looked completely rattled against Chelsea. There are a lot of reports linking him away from the club to the likes of Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, and I think Chelsea might be another one. But yeah, with Sarr, he's also got a better fixture against Brentford, so there's a few reasons there. Adamak says, hi mate, hope you're well. Start Kirkes or Sarr? Sarr gives me a 3-4-3, Kirkes gives me a 4-3-3. Cheers, mate. It's close. I think Kirkes is a better FPL asset, but at the same time, Sarr's ceiling is higher, and he's got a good fixture this week. I'd probably go for Sarr, but there's not a big difference. Jonathan says, hola Dylan, ¿qué piensas de vender a Robinson por Konate o Gabriel por Virgil esta jornada, pensando en la doble en jornada 24? Me gustan las transferencias, te digo la verdad. Si tuviera que elegir uno, creo que Robinson por Konate es mejor. Y Gabriel siempre tiene la potencial de anotar un gol. Y Arsenal tiene una buena defensa. Es que últimamente en la Premier no pueden obtener esa valla invicta. Yo vendí Gabriel para comprar a Trent, también para mufar a Liverpool y si no para algunos puntos en la doble, digamos. Pero sí, si tuviera que elegir sería Robinson por Konate. Aaron says bench 2, Aina, Robinson, Trent, Gabriel, Munoz, and play Mateta or Wood this week. Oof, I'd play Mateta over Chris Wood, but I'd still try to find a way to start him as well. Bench 2 from the others. I mean, Trent should not be in this debate, really. Gabriel, I think, starts as well. Then it's between the other three. Straight shootout. Slight preference for Robinson, but it's very close. But definitely start Trent, Gabriel, and I'd go for Mateta. If you buy Pickford next week, are there potentially risk either Pickford clean sheet or Salah, Gakpo blank? Yeah, but there's the other fixture to think about, right? Liverpool have Bournemouth as well in that double, and in the case of Everton, they've got Leicester first at home. So I don't think buying Pickford's bad. And let's not forget, you know, last season, back in April, it was a 2-0 win for Everton at Goodison Park. So I think in a Merseyside derby, anything's possible, although Liverpool are heavy favourites. Ali says bench 1 of Ahmad, Sarr, and Joao Pedro. I'm not sure if I've answered this before. Maybe I haven't, but I'd probably bench... I think I'd bench Ismaila Sarr from these three. Start Joao Pedro or Ahmad, and why? I think I'd start Joao Pedro. Slightly better fixture as well. I think Man United could struggle against Fulham away. But they've got a great record against them, to be fair. It's just this season, I don't have too much confidence in Man United. With Amad Diallo, though, he's got a really high ceiling. Benching him could be a disaster. Thank you, Adamak. I appreciate the kind words. Start Semenyo, Sarr, or Rodgers. Oh my god, it just seems like we're getting a lot of these similar, at least layouting questions. Yeah, it's going to be Rodgers for me. I'm so torn who to pick. Chris Wood, Pedro, Sarr, Rodgers. Essentially, I'd bench Ismaila Sarr from those four. Bench Robinson, Aina, or Kirkes. It's probably going to be Kirkes for me, but he's got some attacking potential. It's a difficult one either way. There's almost nothing separating the three, but I'm going to say bench Kirkes. Konate or Alexander? Definitely Trent, if you can afford it. You think Arsenal defence will still be solid without Saliba? Well, there are reports that he's going to be back by next week, and he could even make it for the Wolves game, although I doubt that. Yeah, I mean, it was against weak opposition in the Champions League against Dinamo Zagreb. You can't really judge too much. But, I mean, Arsenal in the Champions League, even with all their injuries and problems this season, they've conceded 2 goals there and none from open play. It's just in the Premier League, especially away from home, they haven't been able to... I don't know, they've had lapses in concentration. We saw that against Aston Villa, for example, at the Emirates. And yeah, I still think the Arsenal defence will be solid without Saliba, but there's a big difference. I mean, he's one of the best defenders in world football, and it's obviously a downgrade. Hey, Dylan, sell Robinson to Gabriel. I'm not sure if I'm buying Gabriel now, to be honest. I sold him just now, and I will probably regret that. But yeah, I'm just not sure if that's like the best timing. I mean, you've got Man City next week, Dennis Good long-term fixtures. It's not a terrible transfer. Ultimately, I see it as an upgrade, but will you need that extra million in the future? That's what I'd be asking. Bench Robinson, Kirkes, or Aina? I think I answered this just a few minutes ago. It's going to be Kirkes on the bench for me. Start 2, Palmer, Kulusevski, Vissa. Never include Palmer in the benching dilemma, is my advice. I'd start him for sure. And maybe I'd go for Vissa, but Kulusevski against Leicester, not someone you'd want to bench. Start 2, Wood, Eze, Rodgers. I'd bench Rodgers here. The Budget Traveller says start 3 of Eze, Rodgers, Gay, Hall, and Kirkes this week. I'd bench Kirkes and Gay. I'd definitely bench Gay from those 5 for sure. Bruno and Wood to Gakpo and Mbumo. I see what you're doing. I'd probably keep what you have there, or just stick with Bruno to Mbumo and find another way to get another Liverpool player. That could even be Diaz, for example. But yeah, Chris Wood to Gakpo, I'm not that fond of that sort of move. I mean, in my case, I saw Jackson, so that made me more open to buying Gakpo. Start Gabriel or Robinson. Gabriel. Nico Williams versus Kirkes, Watkins versus Gakpo, and Gordon versus Arsenal midfield for the next few weeks. It's still Gordon for me over Arsenal midfielders, but Martinelli is not a bad shout considering his recent form. Trossard's also been churning out the attacking contributions, but his minutes will be in and out. Williams versus Kirkes. Yeah, next few weeks it'd be Kirkes, Watkins, Gakpo. Gakpo, I think, just about. And I think the double pretty much settles it. And I think he'll... Well, they're both slight rotation risks. But with Watkins, I think Duran will get a start over the next 3. JR says, I think I'm going to bring in my third Liverpool asset, Alisson or Gakpo next week. I prefer Gakpo, but yeah, I think waiting until next week will give you more information. I just recommend for a lot of people doing it now, so you can tackle that Ipswich Town fixture as well. Start Semenyo or Sarr. I mean, Semenyo's got the tougher fixture, but I'd probably go for him here. Sam says transfer Saliba and Gibbs White, for example. Munoz, Gordon, taking a -4 hit, worth it. I mean, Gordon looks really good for this week, but I'm not sure if buying him for a -4 hit is worth it. I bought him last week, to be fair, but it wasn't for a hit. Ultimately, I'd say yes, but just be very careful with Gordon. You might find yourself wanting to sell him fairly soon. Double Everton and double game week? You don't need it. I think one's enough. I might go to double Everton myself and buy Pickford for sales and then, let's say, Mikalenko for one of Colwill or Veltman. But it's not necessary, I think. I think one's enough. But yeah, if you can get to it with a free transfer, it's not terrible. A double's a double, right? But Everton aren't the best in terms of their assets. I'm 70% sure I'm getting Moyes next week. A lot of table bonus opportunities. Yeah, there could be. Especially with the upcoming fixtures like Crystal Palace. By that stage, there could be a difference of 5 league positions in the Premier League table. And if that's the case, yeah, that looks very promising. Obina says, hi Dylan, start 1, Jimenez, Sarr, Joao Pedro. Joao Pedro. Son or Watkins captain? Watkins. Gabriel to Milenkovic or Timber and Raul and Gakpo. Apologies. Gabriel to Milenkovic or Timber and Raul and Gakpo. Sorry, I didn't fully understand the question. I wouldn't be recommending selling Gabriel in many cases unless that's your only route to Trent. Otherwise, I'd highly recommend keeping Gabriel. Raul to Gakpo, yeah, if that's what you're saying. And if you're asking about Timber or Milenkovic, at this moment in time, I prefer Timber. Bring in Vissa or Mateta. Mateta, but both are good options. I like Vissa. Would you do Jackson to Gakpo and Raul to Wood for free this week? Yeah, I would. Chris Wood is a bit of an interesting one because he's got some tough fixtures. It might be an inopportune time to buy him, but he's fixture-proof. I think he's an upgrade on Raul Jimenez, so it's not terrible. And I definitely like the other move. I've done it myself. I'm very happy to have gotten rid of Jackson. Saliba to Trent or Van Dijk? It's going to be Trent. Sell Saliba or Lewis for who? Well, Saliba could be back by next week. If you can afford to keep him, it's not a terrible shout. But yeah, Lewis, I think, is just a sell. Man City are terrible defensively. He's not starting games, although that could change fairly soon. Matheus Nunes hasn't been great in that position. And City are kind of decimated at the back, so you would expect Lewis to get more starts, but that's not a good thing. I mean, City are there for the taking defensively. Yeah, I'd rather sell Lewis. I mean, who could you go to? Mikalenko for Double Gameweek 24, but that's more of a transfer you make next week. Kanate will be a nice shout. It all depends on your budget, which I don't know about. Hey Dylan, what's your instant impact team for challenge? I haven't made it yet. I'll probably go to it after the deadline has passed. Yeah, Salah captain, you can see on screen in terms of reasons why. That's been covered in my team selection and in the stream as well. But Salah averages more points per game, better underlying stats. Even during that Isak run for the last 9 game weeks, it's been very close between the two. And Isak only marginally leads in certain aspects. Alright, so just got to deal with the chat myself. There's a few issues here. So yeah, just be patient, just wait a little while. Your questions will be answered. Otherwise, yeah, repeating the same stuff. You know the drill here. Mbeumo, Eze, Rogers, pick 1. Mbeumo. Isak, yeah, Salah captain. It'd be Salah for me. Just don't get DCL, Dylan. I've been through the pain. Worst decision this season. Oh yeah, I'm not going there. I mean, especially with my transfer luck recently, no. I mean, that's asking for trouble. I'm good, thanks. Thoughts on who to start as average at FPL? Munoz or Sarr? I'm leaning towards Munoz, as I think he may be a better differential. Well, he's got more avenues to points, right, you could say. I don't see a massive difference in terms of Munoz getting a goal contribution compared to Sarr. I see what you're saying there, to be fair. It's not a bad shout. I personally think Brentford score. But yeah, I think Munoz over Sarr is definitely a decent option, actually. Nabin says start 2, Robinson, Munoz, Iwobi, Raul Jimenez. I'd go for Jimenez and possibly Robinson here. Thank you, Jonathan. Start Sells or Raya. And Joao Pedro or Rogers. Very close, though. Start 2, Kirkers, Raul, Rogers, Sarr, Robinson. Yeah, Rogers and Jimenez for me. A lot of benching questions, by the way. It's kind of, I've never seen so many benching questions in my life, I think. It might be a record. Jesus. So bench 1, once again, Palmer. Do not include him in these debates, please. Ahmad, Eze, Foden. Also, I took a -4 hit to get Gakpo and Mikalenko in. Yeah, not particularly fond of Mikalenko in for a hit this week. For me, the best time to buy Everton assets is Gameweek 24. But ultimately, I might take a hit myself for Mikalenko. And is it a big difference? Not really. But I do like the transfers for Gameweek 24. That goes without saying. Which one to bench? It's probably going to be Ahmad for me. Raul or Joao Pedro? Joao Pedro. Not much in it, though. There really isn't. Bench 1 of Robinson, Hall, Timber, and then bench 1 of Sarr, Jackson, and Pedro. I will not be benching Hall this week. It's probably Robinson bench and Jackson. Raul or Joao Pedro? Covered that. Should I do Joao Pedro and Foden to Gakpo and Mbeumo for free? Have free transfers. Yeah, I like that. Foden's been in brilliant form, though. I know against PSG was kind of anonymous, but generally speaking, he's been on fire. Yeah, I like those moves. I'd probably do it. Sell Jackson and Sarr, bring Rogers and Gakpo, or sell Jackson only. Yeah, I'd make both transfers, to be fair. I mean, Sarr to Rogers. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an upgrade, but you might find yourself wanting a different budget midfielder like Semenyo, Kluivert, and maybe even Amad Diallo. But definitely do Jackson to Gakpo for now. Then you can reassess with the other one. Keep Sarr for the time being, and then maybe you have a clear idea of which budget midfielder you want fairly soon. That could also be Elanga. Yeah, triple captain Salah, I've been asked this before. It's not a bad option. I'd rather use it in the double, though. Start Colwell or Van den Berg this week? Probably Van den Berg. Better chance of a clean sheet. Bench Jackson or Sarr? I'd probably bench Jackson, but maybe he was now going to troll us all and start scoring. I mean, Jackson is kind of an interesting one, isn't he? Ain Moore says, hi Dylan, start 2 of Aina, Robinson, Rogers, and Raul. Thank you. Yeah, it'd be Rogers and Raul. Sell Jackson and Sarr, bring Rogers and Gakpo. Yeah, some of these have been covered. Let me zone in. Who to bench from JP, Palmer, Rogers, Wood, and Fernandez? Yeah, from those players, I'd be looking to bench, I think, Joao Pedro. Yeah, Joao Pedro, I think. I think Bruno ranks slightly higher than him. DRK34, transfer suggestions, and who to bench. It's probably going to be one of Rodgers or Raul on the bench. I think Raul Jimenez bench, if I had to pick one. I don't think you need to make a transfer this week. I think that's a very good midfield for now, but I would start to look towards different alternatives for either Murphy or Gordon fairly soon, just not this week. Start Sells or Flecken? Sells. Madison would be a great pick this week. Shemi can't get the minutes. He got a Leicester. Oh yeah, he would be. If he starts the game, very appealing. What player that FPL managers not buy will overperform this week, like Clover last week? Interesting one. It could be someone absolutely random like Shabosly or bloody McAllister. Good night, Dylan. Have you heard of the Visa incident? Oh yes, someone sent me a link. Yeah, I heard about that. That's. I think he is available for this week, but he did fly to France for a court hearing. Yes, that is true. Kind of very strange to hear that happened to him. Which would you start, Aina, Robinson, or Munoz and Rodgers or Vissa? Probably Robinson and Rodgers. I mean, nah, it's going to be Vissa for me. Of course, what the man, the myth, the legend just said, something to take into account, but I think he's available. I haven't heard otherwise. Kimi Raikkonen says start 2, Hall, Gabriel, Munoz. He'd be the first two. I'd bench Daniel Munoz. Seth says, do I sell Diaz for Trossard and Wood for Gakpo? Nah, not for me. Trossard's been brilliant recently, but I wouldn't be going for him in FPL. Transferring Marmoush? Not for me. I think up front, I'd rather go for Gakpo, Mateta, Isak, Watkins. There's a few others I'd rank above him. He might not even start the game. He could be eased into things to begin with. Start Murillo or Munoz? Probably Munoz. Just more avenues to points, and I do think Murillo concedes here. Morning, making breakfast. Hope all is well. Wow, late breakfast for you. Not that I'm judging. Enjoy yourself, and good luck for Gameweek 23. Arsenal mid for Jota. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people mention Arsenal midfielders, Trossard, Martinelli being the standouts. I mean, not terrible. It's just Arsenal can be toothless up front, and that has played a lot into my thinking. I'm just trying to avoid all Arsenal players. I've sold all of them in UCL Fantasy and FPL. Yeah, I'd rather go elsewhere. Eze, I think, would be a preference for me. Mazraoui or Mikalenko bench? Well, Mazraoui is a slight doubt, isn't he? But I think both of them concede. It's probably going to be Mikalenko for me. Sell Jackson and Sarr, bring Rodgers and Gakpo, or sell Jackson only. Covered that, mate. I'd sell Jackson only for now. Reassess next week, but I would replace Sarr fairly soon. Robinson or Aina? Robinson. Bench one from Sarr, Hall, and Munoz. It's going to be Sarr on the bench here. Dr. K34, transfer suggestions I covered. Start Murillo or Munoz. It's going to be Munoz. Yeah, we're getting the same questions here. Let's whiz through to the recent comments. Hopefully there's new ones. Start Kirk as a Robinson. Close, but I'd go for Robinson. Hi Dylan, would you do a -4 Raul to Vissa or play Raul? I just play Raul for now. Sell Foden to buy Gakpo and Mbeumo, I'm guessing that is. Yeah, I think so. Considering the fixtures as well. But Foden is a man on fire in the Premier League, so it's always risky, but I'd probably sell him. Diaz plus Aina to Trent and Semenyo, bringing in Alisson next week for the triple up, or just bring in Pickford and Van Dijk next week to have 5 double game week players, scared of Trent's potential in the next 4. I'd probably go to Trent and Semenyo. Yeah, that'd be my preference, but I do like Van Dijk. Having 5 double game week players and Van Dijk is solid. I just prefer the Trent route, even though it means selling Diaz this week. Yeah, I mean, look, selling Diaz, if he starts, it can always backfire as well, but I'd probably go for the Trent route. Start Timber or Joao Pedro? Joao Pedro. Bench 1, Murphy, Wood, Rodgers, Palmer, says Nick. Oh, wait, I think no more background noise, so I think I can take these off and I can actually concentrate maybe better. Yeah, from those options, that's difficult. It's probably going to be Rodgers bench, mate. Raid says play Rodgers or Ahmad. I'd play Rodgers out of the two. Nezkeys, good to see you. Hi Dylan. Jackson to Gakpo, Watkins, or roll and play Murphy/Rodgers, who would likely be on the bench if I did this move. Yeah, if I'm buying one now, it's going to be Gakpo. I do like Watkins. I recommended him as a purchase very recently, so I'm not completely against it. But yeah, in your case, you've got a solid option here in Murphy or Rodgers, and I'd play Murphy this week. Start Konate or Hall. Very, very interesting one. I'd still go for Lewis Hall. I just think Konate's ceiling is much lower, whilst Hall could get a clean sheet and an assist and then bonus points. So it's going to be Lewis Hall for me, but I will admit I think Liverpool have a better chance of a clean sheet. In fact, I think they've got the best chance of a clean sheet of any Premier League team this week. Is it too risky to not captain Salah? It's always a risk. Since Game Week 10 especially, with the effective ownership and his returns, the consistency. I think with Isak, if you don't believe those rumours on Twitter and stuff like that, you can go in that direction, but yeah, it's always risky. Hey Dylan, I'm planning to do Raul to Gakpo this week, Sarto and Bumo, and Timber to Kirkes or Howson next week or the week after. Yes or no? Also suggest ways to improve these transfers, if any. Yeah, Raul to Gakpo, I'm on board with it. Short-term move, but still very solid. Sarto and Bumo. I'd go to Kirkes over Howson, but both of them are fine. Other options to consider would be Nico Williams, you know, especially if you want more blank Game Week 29 players, for example, but I think what you've gone for is very solid. I'd go for all of those transfers, I'm not going to lie. Pick two between Mbumo, Rodgers, Eze. I'd bench Rodgers this week. Thank you, Kimi Räikkönen. Big help, my team is ready now. I'm glad to hear it, and good luck for Game Week 23. Thank you, Prince Izzy. Please start two, Sarr, Robinson, and Hall. Lewis Hall, and I'd go for Robinson. Isak captain, going for it. I wish you the best. I still haven't actually seen anything on Twitter, you know, suggesting that he's a doubt or anything, but I'm going to have a look. Play Rodgers or Vissa. Vissa for me. Jaren says start 3, 8 Nuria, Kanji, Gavardio, Burn, Botman, Timber, Simicas. Timber? There's a lot of defenders there, by the way. Yeah, Timber, Simicas, although that's slightly risky, and Dan Burn. That looks pretty good. Should I do Gabriel to Timber to fund Raul to Gakpo? Not a big fan of it, but ultimately, I like the Raul to Gakpo move. I'd probably go ahead with it. But selling Gabriel this week, I can already tell it's going to backfire for me personally. I've made that transfer myself. Savia out for Bruno Guimaraes. I want to be recommending Bruno in FPL. He might do really well this week, but longer term, I think he's a transfer out waiting to happen. Is it crazy to captain Palmer? I was less keen on it yesterday in the team selection video, but as you say, given the injuries City have, and also their defensive form, I think it's not a bad shout. He is considerably lower than Isak and Salah for me in the rankings, but I think he could do really well. Jed Spence is a doubt. I'm not sure if he starts either. That's the honest truth. Haaland to Gakpo and Castagna to Trent. Yes, I like that. Which one to sell for Trent, Hall, Robinson or Munoz? I think Lewis Hall long-term might be the one to sell, but you don't want to do it this week. It's a question of timing. So unfortunately, with future game weeks in mind as well, it's probably going to be Robinson. Although, if you want to navigate Game Week 29 without the free hit, Robinson will be more useful to you than Daniel Munoz, who will likely blank there. So if you are thinking about that too when making this decision, that will ultimately determine it. But if that's not too much of an issue for you, I'd probably sell Robinson based on the timing I'm making the transfer this week. Gabriel to Gay to fund Gakpo in for Raul. No, I'm not a big fan of that. I wouldn't do that. Rodgers or Raul? Probably Rodgers. I would start Robinson over Munoz, but they're both decent. Palmer or Wood bench? It would have to be Chris Wood here. HD Simmer, you just have to say it once, mate. Don't worry, there's no rush. I would go for Kulusevski over Matoma this week. Ayanfi says, I'm thinking of doing Gavardio to Munoz, Enzo to Ahmad, and Jackson to Mateta. Should I proceed or anything different? Yeah, Enzo to Ahmad looks fairly decent to me, and there's also other budget midfielders like Rodgers. Elanga's okay, Jacob Murphy, although I wouldn't buy him with a long-term view. Jackson to Mateta looks very solid. Gakpo's the alternative, of course. Munoz and for Gavardio, absolutely fine. Yeah, looks very, very good. You might even want to consider Eze for Enzo if you've got the funds, or maybe Mbeumo. It all depends on your budget. Elanga or Sarr? This week it would be Sarr. Dylan jinx Gakpo and Trent this week? I hope so, mate. Like I mentioned before, if I'm buying Liverpool players, I either get points or I jinx them. I'm not going to complain either way. Could you please explain why I'd play Vissa over Rodgers, please? Well, Vissa averages more points per start and per 90 minutes. I also think with Rodgers, look, he's a really good option. I've been quite bullish on him for many months now. But I just think Vissa has a high ceiling, generally speaking. And the only downside to this sort of thing is that Palace are in good form, albeit mainly in away games compared to at home. And Brentford themselves are very poor on their travels. So it's not a clear-cut answer. I think it's very close. But Vissa has better underlying stats. He has so many big chances, especially in recent weeks. And I think he can score against Palace. Of course, Rodgers can do the same thing, but I have a slight preference for Vissa for the reasons discussed before. Raul captain, not for me. Robinson or Williams to start? Robinson. Ruler 2 says next week, Eze plus JP to Cunha and Mbeumo, or just Eze to Mbeumo. Yeah, Eze to Mbeumo is my favourite. I wouldn't recommend buying Cunha now. There is a possibility that he leaves the club before the January transfer window closes. He faces Arsenal this week, of course. I just stick with Eze to Mbeumo, but even with that sort of move, I mean, do you want to sell Eze? I'm not so sure. I'd probably keep him for now. Gabriel to a 4.6 million defender. Yeah, I just don't like that, if I'm being honest. I get what you're doing, but I'm not a big fan. Ahmad, Rodgers or Wood this week? I would go for... yeah, Chris Wood. Difficult fixture, but he is fixture-proof himself. Hey Dylan, hope you're having a good one. Start 1 pairing Wood and Gabriel, or Murphy and Howson? Wood and Gabriel. Would you start Rodgers or Semenyo? Rodgers has the better fixture. I'd go for him. Foden to Mbeumo to fund Pedro to Gakpo? Yeah, I'm on board with those transfers. Bench 1, Raul or Murphy? I'd bench Raul Jimenez. Mikolenko or Timber this week? Timber. Chase says 5 free transfers. Any suggestions? Sanchez, Aina, Castagna, Howson, Gabriel, Hoare, Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo, Rodgers, Haaland, Wood, Welbeck. Triple captain in Gameweek 24. Nice. Yeah, Sanchez to Pickford or Alisson would be my suggestion there. And I prefer Pickford. So defensively, I try to find a way to buy Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think selling Haaland would be your cash cow. That makes it simpler. So something like Haaland to Gakpo. I would probably say Castagna up to Trent, if you can make that work. And then Sanchez to Pickford looks really good for Double Gameweek 24. You can roll the other moves for now and then reassess. But even something like Welbeck, you know, to Mateta, if you've got the funds, I'm not sure that might be pushing it. But to be fair, selling Haaland does open up a lot of possibilities for you. Yeah, Welbeck to one of Watkins or Mateta. I think you're good to go. You can roll that other transfer that I talked about. And with Pickford, you can always make that move in Gameweek 24, although Sanchez does play Man City this week. Hi Dylan, should I transfer Raul to Gakpo or roll? I'd make the move, personally. Damsgaard or Elanga? For this week, I prefer Damsgaard. Also, Marmoush could be insane value if he's 70% like in Frankfurt. I think it'll take him a little while to adapt, and this could age horribly, like milk, you could say, but I think he is someone to kind of watch from a distance, see how he adjusts. I think he'll be eased into it and not start games immediately. Thank you to Stepaki, and thank you, Brahim, B11. Bench either Rodgers or Pedro. As mentioned multiple times before, I would start Morgan Rodgers, but it's close. I would bench Elanga there, HD Cinema. Twan says, hi Dylan, start Ahmad, Sarr or Rodgers. And for Gameweek 24, better to triple captain or manager chip. Triple captain for me. But the AM chip is more powerful. It's just there are other windows later in the season, like Gameweek 31 to 33, Gameweek 35 to 37, or 36 to 38, where I think the assistant manager chip could be even more powerful than it is right now. So, look, it's a close one. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer, but I'd rather use the triple captain. As for the first question, Ahmad, Salah or Rodgers to start, it would be Rodgers. Bench Aina or Jackson? I'll be honest, I'd probably start Aina. And this could age horribly. City have a lot of defensive issues and poor form defensively, but I could do Welbeck to Isak. Oh yeah, you don't even have Isak. Yeah. Make that move, mate. Yeah. Even though Newcastle will likely blank in 29 and their next few fixtures aren't great, I think that's a great move. So yeah, making those moves I mentioned and Isak, perfect. Start Howson or Konsa? I would probably go for Konsa this week, but not a big fan of him. I'd start Palmer, Vanny. I would not bench the likes of Palmer, Salah in any given game week. Fabianski or Henderson to start? I think both of them concede, but slight preference for Henderson, which I also said last week when they faced each other. Thoughts on Moyes' assmanship next week? Yeah, it has crossed my mind. I'm not going to probably do it because I would need more money in the bank. It's very important to have that. So there's a lot of things to consider that might catch you off guard. If you want to see a video over the coming days, explain the assistantship and some different strategies, then let me know. But yeah, it's definitely a shout. It's high risk, high reward. I'm going to probably save it for later in the season, but there could even be table bonus in the future weeks facing the likes of Crystal Palace in Game Week 25, so not a bad one. Which do you prefer, says Aaron? Henderson, Van Dijk, Murillo, Murphy, Gakpo, or Alisson, Hall, Aina, Diaz, and Dye? So as a, quartet? 5 players. Interesting. It's probably going to be the first 5 with Henderson, Van Dijk, Murillo, Murphy, and Gakpo. Rodgers or Chris Wood? It's going to be Chris Wood. Who has the biggest chance for an upset in results this week? I think Wolves against Arsenal could be a shout. I don't want that to be the case, by the way. Please no. Chelsea beating Man City. Somewhat of an upset and a shock. Bournemouth Forest. Southampton against Newcastle, no chance. Yeah, I'd have to think about that one, but yeah, we'll go into that. So once I do my predictions, I'll give you the answer there. Triple captain Salah, bad rank, plus don't fall the double. I'd rather triple captain Salah next week, but it's a more appealing fixture in 23. There's no denying it. But 2 fixtures over 1, give me that all day long. Bench Anderson or Aina? I'd bench Anderson. Hey, -4 for Wood to Gakpo? Nah, I'd keep Chris Wood for now. And bench Palmer or Ahmad? I'd bench Ahmad. Foden to Mbeumo and JP to Gakpo for a -4. For a -4, I'm not sure. If it's for free, I'd probably say yes. I'm probably going to go against it now with a hit. It's just really fine margins here for this week. Gibbs White or Pedro? Pedro. I would start Mbeumo over Joao Pedro. Timber to Nico Williams and Raul to Mateta, or is Gakpo better? Already have Isak and Wood. I prefer Gakpo over Mateta, but that's mainly because of the double. Yeah. Timber to Nico Williams isn't terrible, but I do think it's a downgrade at this moment in time. Sell Bruno for Mbeumo? Yeah, I think so. And I appreciate Tustapaki moderating the chat. Robinson to Konate this week. If you're set on Konate as one of your Liverpool assets, then yeah, I think this week is a nice time to buy him. Would you consider the assistant manager if I use triple captain? I have Salah and Arnold, Isak, Mateta and Watkins. Well, I've used it as well, back in Game Week 2. Yeah, I'd definitely consider it for 24, but there are other windows, which I mentioned earlier, later in the season where you could have more appealing doubles. I don't think Bournemouth Everton is the easiest set of fixtures for Liverpool. I mean, Everton is quite easy on paper, you could say, but the fact it's a Merseyside derby, the last ever one at Goodison Park, it could be slightly trickier than you'd anticipate originally. Start 1, Ahmad or Welbeck this week? Ahmad. Bench 1 of Aina, Robinson, and 1 of Ahmad, Semenyo, Pedro, and Mbeumo. I would bench Aina, and from the other 4, reluctantly, it's going to be Ahmad. By the way, for Saka's question as well, bear in mind Welbeck did really well against Everton back in Game Week 1. But, yeah, I still prefer Ahmad. Trent, Ahmad, and Gabriel in for Bruno, Saliba, and Robinson for a -4. I like that. Yeah, looks really good. You could consider a different budget midfielder than Ahmad. That's the only kind of debate, really. But I do like Trent. I mean, buying Gabriel now might be slightly awkward with no Saliba. I don't think he'll play this week. Or should I say play in a few hours' time. But he should be back fairly soon. Yeah, good transfers. Rate my team out of 10, says Ayanfi. I don't usually do that. But yeah, for this team, 7, maybe 8. I think Enzo and Salah are sellable. They kind of let the team down. João Pedro is a decent 8th attacker, but he could be upgraded on. And Jackson, it goes without saying, I think he is on the chopping block. The rest is fairly solid, actually. You've got Alisson in place. You don't need to change that, of course. Gabriel, Trent, Hall, Aina, good. Gavardio is maybe sellable. But yeah, those would be some of the suggestions in terms of who to sell, or who to upgrade at least. Start JP or Diaz. It's going to be Diaz. You don't bench him this week. That could be a disaster. Bench Visser, Rogers, or Douglas Luiz. I would bench Douglas Luiz. Yeah, I'd start Visser and Rogers. Hi Dylan, Semenyo or Sarr? I'd still go for Semenyo. He's fixture proof anyway. And you'll probably get some points on my bench. So if you are starting Semenyo this week, you're welcome. Morning Dylan, start Munoz or Rogers? Rogers. Ala Madrid says Henderson, Murillo, Van Dijk, Timber, Foden, Salah, Palmer, Rogers, Mateta, Raul, Isak. One free transfer, please suggest. Yeah, I'm not sure what budget you have. Because if you've got a lot of money in the bank, I think Raul to Gakpo is ideal. But I have a feeling that's not the case. What you could do this week is roll, then sell Foden to a cheaper midfielder, and then use that to get Gakpo or potentially Trent in your defensive line. But it all depends on who you replace Foden with. I don't know your budget, so it makes it slightly difficult. Start DCL Palmer. Come on, this isn't a question, is it? I know DCL's got a better fixture on paper, but don't bench Palmer for DCL. Are you insane? Okay, that sounds rude, but you know what I mean, FPL-wise, you know, like, wow. Bench Visser, Rogers, or, yeah, covered that. Gibbs, White, or Pedro this week, also covered. I'd go for Pedro. Jazabi puts his team. Any changes you'd make, one free transfer. I like it. It's a good team. I don't know I don't know who's on your bench. But, so Aina, Gabriel, Hall, Trent, Ahmad, Salah, Boomer, Palmer, Rogers. All right, okay, so you're going to bench a few of these players. Yeah. I think you can roll for now. And I think for Gameweek 24, you can make a few minor adjustments. If you want, you can buy Mikalenko or an Everton defender, although that's not needed. If you want to put yourself through pain, Calvert-Lewin or Ndai for Raul Jimenez. I mean, it's a double game week compared to what Fulham have, right? Although, who's to say Spurs and Fulham don't double in 25? Well, probably Liverpool in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Bench and Boomer for Munoz, just random thought. I wouldn't do that. I'd start in Boomer personally. Higher ceiling. Dylan, hope you have a blessed weekend, my brother. Do I play Sells or Verbruggen? Sells. And likewise to you. Enjoy the weekend. Start Robinson versus United or Timber? Timber. Afternoon, Dylan. Start Ahmad or Semenyo? It's close. I think Semenyo is just fixture proof. He's so difficult to predict. I'm going to go for Ahmad, but just about. It's very, very close. Start 2 of Munoz, Robinson, and Chris Wood. Yeah, Chris Wood definitely starts, and slight preference for Robinson over Daniel Munoz. I'd go for Robinson over Konsa. I'd start João Pedro over Ismail Assar, Chip Douglas. Sibin says start 1 from Munoz, Ahmad, and Sarr. Yeah, from those 3, it's going to be Amad Diallo, but not by much. Gibbs White's been giving me good points lately. I get that. I'd personally go for João Pedro, but yeah, he's another FPL troll, isn't he? Start Semenyo or Raul, says Surendra. I would go for Raul Jimenez, reluctantly. Sell Bruno for Mbumo. Yeah, I think that's a decent move, but Bruno is not a bad option. I don't think he's a must-sell, so to speak. Raul or Pedro? Probably Jimenez. Aina and Sarr to Trent and Mbumo, says Pierre. Yeah, good moves. I like those a lot. Aina or Kerkez, I'd lean towards Aina, but not by much. I would not be benching Palmer. I'd start him over Mbumo. Foden to Mbumo. Yeah, it's not something you have to do this week though. I'd actually be more open to it in Game Week 24. But he is cheaper, opens up some doors for you potentially in other areas. Singh says, bench one please, Gabriel, Rogers, Hall, Munoz, JP, and Chris Wood. It's going to be Daniel Munoz, I think, from these lot. Varnett says, hey Dylan, should I go forward with Foden and roll out to Gakpo and anyone else in midfield you suggest? I like that. In terms of which midfielders, I think Eze springs to mind. I know some people mentioned Martinelli and Trossard. They're not terrible, but I would probably advise you against doing it. Yeah, Diaz, if you have a Liverpool spot open, although I doubt it. But yeah, I think Eze and Gakpo looks really good. I'd probably go ahead with those moves. His bench boost somewhat viable with a bench of Sells, Joao Pedro. Let's get these other up. Ahmad and Greaves. I think Greaves lets it down already. The others are really good. But Greaves, I'm just not too sure about. According to Easy99, I jinxed the whole world, so there's literally nothing I can do. Maria says, hi Dylan, hope you're well. Do you think Ahmad or Joao Pedro? Probably Joao Pedro for me. I'm struggling to choose between Joao Pedro and Sarr. Who would you start? Joao Pedro. I want to get Gakpo in for next week, says Jazabi. Yeah, I like making the move now, because you've also got Ipswich Town at home, but I get that. Yeah, so fair enough. I think in your case it's probably best to roll, looking back at your previous comment briefly again. Start one from Munoz, Ahmad, and Sarr. Ahmad. I think I covered your question. Hall or Munoz? Lewis Hall. I'm starting DCL just for fun. Fair enough. It's just, with Cole Palmer, I don't like benching that sort of player. He's that good. Henderson, Murillo. Yeah, you did put your team earlier, Ala Madrid. I highlighted it. I don't know your budget, which makes it difficult for me to answer definitively of what you should do, but one thing you could consider is downgrading Foden and then using those funds to then buy Gakpo for Raul Jimenez or buying Trent in the back line. So that's what I'd be recommending, but you might want to roll this week and do it in 24. Start two of Rogers, Sarr, and Jackson. Probably the first two. I could see benching Jackson going horribly wrong, and in my case, selling him, but yeah, I prefer the other two, especially Rogers. Selling Gordon to buy Eze or Kluivert. -4 to bring Gakpo in this week. Selling Gordon if face Southampton for a -4 hit, I'm going to say no. That's my personal take on it. If you still want to go for it, then fair enough, but I don't think that's viable. Start one, Raul, Ahmad, or JP. It's going to be, I think, Jimenez out of the three. Really close, fine margins between the three of them. It can go wrong either way, you could say, but yeah, Jimenez. Who do you think I should start, Kerkez or Munoz? I'm going to go for Daniel Munoz here. Start Rogers or Ahmad? Rogers. Robinson or Hall to start? Definitely Lewis Hall. I haven't started Vinland Saga yet. I'm still watching Monster. Foden to Mbumo? Yes. More so in Game Week 24. I'm more open to it then. But would I make the transfer ultimately? I think I would. Palmer over Damsgaard. Should be easy, but Brentford have Palace. Yeah, but it's Palmer. That's what I'd kind of counteract that with. But I get it. Damsgaard's been a nice differential for certain people. I prefer Palmer. Out of those two, Chip, as mentioned before, I'd go for Joao Pedro. Robinson to Konate, can't get to Trent, unfortunately. Yeah, I'd make it now. You know, you've got Ipswich Town as well to tackle. If that's your only route to the Liverpool defence, I'd go for Konate in 23. Who would you get, Mikalenko or Munoz? I prefer Munoz this week, but if I'm buying one, it's probably going to be Mikalenko. I mean, I could see myself buying him in 24. But it all depends on the context of your question. For this week, I'd definitely start Munoz. Sell Enzo for Mbumo or Rogers. Mbumo, if you can. Just be mindful that making that sort of switch will leave you slightly depleted for funds or make it more difficult to make other upgrades. I'd start Raya over Sells this week. Robinson or Kerkez? Robinson. Not much difference for me. Jazabi says, Isak is ill apparently, late fitness test. Yeah, someone mentioned it in the live chat, and I forgot to have a look myself. So let's scour? Let's surf the internet, let's put it that way. And let's see if I can get anything definitive on Isak. Oh, it's according to Will, isn't it? I'm not sure how reliable he is. Now there's another page, Francis Chip, Newcastle fan and Premier League football expert with 11k followers, saying Isak starts. Take it with a pinch of salt. But yeah, I would just be careful with the Isak news anyway. I mean, Will has gotten things right in the past, but if I'm not mistaken, he's also gotten things wrong. So, yeah. I still think Isak plays. If you're asking me, it's nothing inside information. So, it's just my opinion. I think Isak will play. But definitely I do prefer Salah for the captaincy. Apologies. Triple captain Mo? Yeah, good option. It always is. Even in a single game week, but the timing might be slightly kind of awkward because you've got the double literally around the corner. You could argue that Ipswich Town, you know, he's going to score a hat-trick here and then struggle against Bournemouth and Everton. Fair enough, but I'd rather use in 24. I have 3.1 million in the bank. I am thinking of making 2 free transfers, Raul for DCL and Foden to Diaz. Yeah, look, those are good suggestions as well. They're good plans. DCL over Raul Jimenez, yeah, I get it. It's just, I'm not sure if I can bring myself to go there. But maybe you are onto something. The alternative, like I said, is downgrading Foden and making funds available. Gakpo in for Joao Pedro or Stewart, says Ali. I mean, if possible, I'd rather sell Stewart. Joao Pedro could be a nice rotational option as your 8th attacker. For Stewart to Gakpo, I need 0.2 million so I can sell Van Heck to which defender? I have Saar, Ahmad in midfield. Should I sell any of them? Ahmad's fine. I'd like to sell Saar, but there's not much you can do there. That's a massive upgrade, so to speak. In fact, you'd rather probably go to more expensive midfielders than Ismaila Saar. But in the case of upgrading Stewart and needing 0.2 million, selling Van Heck to Mikalenko is probably your best option because you add another double gimmick 24 player and Mikalenko can be your 4th or 5th defender or another rotational option. You will have a lot of squad depth and probably a lot of bench points from time to time, but that's what I'd recommend. Stewart to Gakpo and then Van Heck to Mikalenko, although he's not someone you want to start week in, week out. Bear that in mind. Trent, Munoz, Robinson and Milenkovic, who would you start? Trent shouldn't be in this conversation, in my opinion. I would go for Robinson and probably Munoz in this case, but it's very, very close. Look, I like Ndai as a player. Very, very good dribbler. Great ball control. As an FPL asset, I think you'll get inconsistencies, just like Calvert-Lewin. But, yeah, look, if you want a double game week 24 attacker, especially a budget option, it's not terrible. It's just, could you say high risk, high reward? I'm not sure about that because they are so cheap, but it's a risk. Ismaila Sarr to Rodgers or Nwaneri from -4. Rodgers. Foden to Diaz. Decent transfer. I'd probably stick with Foden for now and reassess. I think with Diaz, he should start 2 of the next 3 games, maybe even all 3. But I'd be more confident about Gakpo's minutes, although that could age horribly as well. Start Henderson or Raya? Raya. Thank you very much, Ala Madrid. I appreciate the kind words. As he says, drop a like if you enjoy the content. And we've still got a decent amount of time until the deadline, around 41 minutes. And we have answered dozens of questions already. And yeah, provided everything you need to know for Game Week 23 and beyond. We are close to 200 likes. Thank you to those that have done so already. Joao Pedro for Gakpo this week or wait? I'd do it this week if you can. If you're set on Gakpo, do it. Start 1, Dean, Robinson or Kirkes, says Oliver. Yeah, for me it's going to be Robinson. Hi Dylan, Jackson, Eze, Rodgers, bench 1. Jackson. Oliver says start 1, Dean, Robinson or Kirkes. I just covered that, didn't I? Yeah, Aina or Gabriel this week? Gabriel. Bench 1 of Mbumo, Maddison and Rodgers. Well, Maddison might be benched himself, but if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't want to bench him against Leicester, that's for sure. I haven't seen any predicted lineups for Spurs. If he is touted to start, I'd maybe consider benching Rodgers here. But yeah, unfortunately with Maddison, his minutes have been all over the place in the last couple of matches. I'm going to have a quick look here and see what I can find. Okay, there is one particular lineup by Standard. I think it's the Standard, and Maddison is in it. I'd probably take the risk and go for Maddison in your 11, but yeah, he has been a terrible asset in the last 5 game weeks, basically. Transfer out Saliba for a -4, only to Trent, maybe Van Dijk. I don't think, because especially if you've got a 4th or 5th defender, maybe another midfielder to come in that sort of case, I'd rather do that instead of taking a hit. But yeah, there aren't many defenders I take a hit for, even if Saliba's out for this week. He should be back in Game Week 24. Wanderlust puts his team, 2 free transfers. How much budget do you have there? That's my question. But Szoboszlai, differential, it might work for you. I'm not a big fan of him FPL-wise, but that could work. I mean, you might even consider doing Fleck into Pickford very soon, especially in 24. And you can buy another Everton asset like Mikolenko at the back, or Calvert-Lewin/Ndiaye up front for Jimenez. But for this week in particular, I think you're pretty well set. I wouldn't start Flecking over Raya personally. That's just my opinion. Defensively, Aina versus Robinson is a call to be made. Obviously, Solanke is out for you. You might want to do something like Szoboszlai out to Eze if you've got the funds, and then Solanke to Gakpo. That could work very well, but I do appreciate that with 2 free transfers, you might want to use them to get just more double game week assets like the Everton ones I just discussed. Thank you, Ilko. Should I struggle to bring more Liverpool or just roll this week? Got Sells, Gabriel, Hall, Munoz, Castagna, Greaves, Salah, Palmer, Mbumo, Gordon, Ahmad, Isak, Wood. Mate. I'm joking. Mateta. 0 in the bank. Right. It's just if you are able to get Liverpool players this week, my recommendation is doing it because it's Ipswich Town. It's a great fixture. Then you've got the double and then Wolves at home. It's a great entry point for those that haven't got that 2nd or 3rd Liverpool player already. So my advice would be yes, but if it's a real struggle and you need to take massive hits and stuff like that, then maybe wait a week. Gordon or Mbumo? This week, Gordon. If I'm buying one long term, and I said this in the last stream as well, I think Mbumo is the better long-term purchase, but for this week, it's going to be Gordon. He's facing Southampton away. Thank you, Football Rush Insider. Saliba for Timber or Gabriel? I prefer Gabriel if you can, but as you say, more funds with Timber. I get that. If that's going to help you with future moves, that might be the best transfer for your team. I just think Gabriel's a superior FPL asset. I would bench... I think I'd bench Ahmad here and start Semenyo, but it's extremely close. I can't stress it enough. Robinson or Gabriel to start? Gabriel. I would start Rodgers over Semenyo. Would you consider starting Ahmad or Wood? I'd start Chris Wood, Kenny. Another close call. A lot of these questions have been, but that would be my take on it. Cheers, Dylan. Need to head off. Lunch with the missus, making me miss the footy. Wow, enjoy it, mate. Have a great time. And, well, it might be a blessing in disguise. I wish I could miss the football sometimes. Who else would Spurs play? Well, you'd be surprised, mate. They can play Johnson on the right. I mean, yeah, with Solanke's injury, you could say it opens the door for him a little bit more. They could play Richarlison up front still. I don't know. It's just something a bit odd with Maddison's minutes this season. I think Gakpo starts. He was benched in the Champions League. I'd be very surprised if he got his first Premier League benching in 11 games after being benched in midweek. Start Rodgers or Visser? Visser. Very, very close. I can't stress it enough. I really can't. Hopefully that's all good. Good afternoon, Ahmad or Sa. Fixtures-wise, Sa has a more appealing fixture, but I'd probably go for Ahmad here. By the way, let me know if there's any issues, like, for example, with the camera, if there's like any lag or lip syncing, stuff like that, because the resolution is supposedly higher, entre comillas, but yeah, I don't know, maybe there's some slight issues. So anything like that, anything to improve, let me know, and I'll be working on it once the deadline stream is over. Lucas says, would you sell Sa or Rodgers to get Trent in? I'd rather sell Sa. I think Rodgers is the better option for the next couple of weeks and months. Robinson or Elanga? Robinson. Sell Solanke to Gakpo or Onana to Alisson? Solanke to Gakpo. Next week, do Onana to Pickford. That's my preference. Joao Pedro to Watkins or Mateta or Iwobi to Mbeumo. Wow. Iwobi to Mbeumo is my favourite. Mbeumo or Kluivert long term? Mbeumo. Who do I start, Ahmad or Rodgers? Rodgers. So yeah, hello. Hopefully your question's answered, mate. So it was highlighted as well. So hopefully you heard that. If not, rewind a couple of minutes and you'll see. But basically, if you can get to Liverpool players, do it. If it's going to be a real struggle and it means many hits, wait another week. It all depends on that. Are you selling Gordon and other players that may blank in 29? No, not for now. I mean, before we get to 29, you're right. That could be an option, but I don't see myself selling Gordon for the next couple of weeks unless circumstances change. I literally just bought him in. Way too late. I recommended him for time. I should have done it earlier. Play Sa or Savio? It's going to be Sa, I think. Should I keep Jimenez? Not a bad option to keep against United. I think he is upgradable, so to speak. But it all depends on the context of your team. For now, I'd say yes. Start JP or Diaz? Diaz. Barrett says debating selling Robinson to Mikalenko and dibbling to Mbeumo, but tempted to hold off and go with Bournemouth options in a few weeks instead as better long-term fixtures. Well, the likes of Semenyo, for example, they're not conventional assets, so to speak, in terms of Semenyo might have a great fixture, then he'll disappoint you, and then he's got a tough game on paper and he does extremely well. But I get your point. I think Bournemouth assets are worth investment from Gameweek 25 onwards. I'm not a big fan of buying them now against Forest and Liverpool, despite what I just said about Semenyo. I do like the Mbeumo move, though. I really do. But I always recommend having one budget midfielder if you can. Rodgers can fit the bill. Even Sa for now, although I'm not a big fan of him. Amad Diallo, etc. And of course, Kluivert and Semenyo, as you mentioned. But Robinson to Mikalenko is only a transfer I'd make for 24. I wouldn't be making that move this week. I feel Maddison might play as Johnson and Solanke are out. You know, I think Maddison will play. And that's why in that question I was asked, I recommended starting Maddison and benching Rodgers. It's just I've kind of highlighted his minutes recently, which have been an issue. But you are right. I think with Johnson and Solanke out of the picture, especially Solanke for the long term, I think it makes sense for Maddison to start. If I had to pick a Spurs mid now, with the current injury situation, Maddison's my favourite. But Kulusevski is kind of the most secure. And I think he's an underrated player. I do like Kulusevski. Very good technically. Arsenal fan. But yeah, I'd probably say Maddison with the current circumstances. Start Munoz or Hall? Lewis Hall. I mean, against Southampton away, you're going to go for him, right? Thinking of downgrading Isak after this game week for Asman funds. It's kind of throwing a spanner in the works, this chip, right? It's going to make us do things we never thought we'd do in FPL. That's an option for you, I guess. I wouldn't recommend it, but maybe in a few weeks' time, Isak looks suddenly off for it again, like he did at the beginning of the season. Asman in Gameweek 24 on slot Moyes means cost of Asman is restored to squad value from Gameweek 27. If playing Asman in a later double Gameweek, you have less money to spend on the 50-man squad for that double. That's a good point. That's a really good way of looking at it, Richard, and that's a point that hasn't been made too much. So for those that aren't aware, once you do invest money in an assistant manager, obviously you're going to spend money on that manager. You need the extra 1.5 million on slot, for example. But once the free game weeks are done and the AM chip is over, you get that money back. But as you say, that could definitely be something that makes the Gameweek 24 Asman chip usage more appealing. I get that. But there's pros and cons either way. More information later in the season. You also have a clear idea of what you need to do as an FPL manager. Do you go for the kill, go for the jugular, and maybe go for something maverick, or do you go a bit safer and conservative, preserving your rank? Aina or Timber? I'd rather start Timber. Bench one out of Wood, Rodgers, and Palmer. Palmer, really? I would rather bench Rodgers. And he said Chris Wood, and to be fair, that's close. Is it a scone or a scone, mate? What are you on about? Sorry, I don't know what we're talking about scones here. Let me know. I'm probably being stupid. Top 3 transfers in this week. Are you asking me who the top 3 most transferred in players are, or who I recommend as the top 3 transfers in? I mean, that's a clear distinction, I think, but I think Liverpool is the priority. It really is. So that could be Gakpo, Trent for sure. I've bought both of them this week. If you don't have Salah, I'd make that a priority ASAP. Thank you, Wanderlust. Sounds good. I think I'll bring in Everton asset next game week, maybe. Gonna go for the Szoboszlai punt. I think I'll give him a last chance. If not, then do the transfers you said. Yeah, I think so. I think there's different ways of approaching it, right? But I think with your situation and team, I think that's the best way. Yo, Dylan, hope you're good, mate. Do you think it's worth taking out Saliba for Gabriel? Yeah, I think so. As long as it doesn't incur a hit if you want to buy Everton or Liverpool assets for Double Gameweek 24, or even this week, then I would go for that sort of move. Saliba should be back for Gameweek 24, though, against Man City. Although, with Arsenal season, you never know. Hey, Dylan, start Aina or Robinson? Very close, but as mentioned before, a slight preference for Robinson, mainly due to the assists. Timber to Kirkes this week or next week? Next week. Although next week it is Liverpool, and I wouldn't recommend starting Kirkes there. So if anything, if you really want Kirkes, I think 25 is the best time to do it. Also start Sarr or Ahmad. Ahmad Diallo for me. I would go for Rodgers over Ahmad Diallo, Mosen. And thank you, Abo. Good morning, FPL legend. Very kind of you. Start Savio or Rodgers. It'd be Rodgers for me. Now, Savio got a full rest against Ipswich Town, but played in the Champions League. Very disappointing result. He is their first choice left winger. But yeah, I'd go for Rodgers. No early team news. I mean, there is a rumour of Isak being ill and facing a late fitness test. I'm not sure how reliable the source is. Thank you, Kenny. New camera setup is great, very professional. The overlays with the profile team info is nice too. Well, thank you. I was just wondering because I think someone said there was a slight audio issue. I'm not sure if they said it was out of sync. So, like, I don't know. I've also been quite meticulous when setting everything up, but I have heard issues when doing it in 4K, the camera, compared to 1080p. No flex, I promise. Good evening from Australia. Sarta Son says, Dom, I have 4.5 million in the bank. Look, Son as a short-term punt against Leicester City can work very well. I just don't think he's worth the money. And if you want a Spurs midfielder, my preference would be Maddison with the current circumstances where he should start, and Kulusevski. I just think Son will give you a massive return and then blank 4 or 5 weeks in a row, and then he might get another 8 to 12 pointer, but is it enough to kind of justify that price tag and also all those blanks? Maybe not, but for this week, I think Son's a nice differential. Don't get me wrong. And he's an upgrade on Sarr. So, yeah, looks good. I would prioritise Liverpool, though. Start 2 and bench 2. Hall, Sarr, Rodgers, Gabriel. I'd start Gabriel and Hall. I think Rodgers just behind them, and Sarr's last. I'd start Chris Wood over Sarr. I didn't watch Argentina on the 20s, but yeah, they beat Brazil 6-0. It's always nice beating Brazil, and by that scoreline. Hopefully that happens in the senior team at one stage. But I'll take the wins that we're getting against them. Jackson to Mateta. Yeah, good move. Very solid. If I didn't go for Gakpo this week, I think Mateta would have been next in line. Play Sanchez or Fabianski or transfer for Pickford. I'd sell into Pickford. I've mentioned this many times before throughout the week. The best time to buy Pickford or any Everton asset is 24. But in your case with Fabianski or Sanchez, yeah, I'd rather just make the move now. Bench Mbumo, Wood or Pedro? It's probably going to be Joao Pedro on the bench. Triple Chelsea versus City is a no-brainer. Yeah, that's a Man City fan, by the way, saying this. He's trying to reverse jinx. He's very good at that, by the way. Probably the best in the world. With free transfers, would you just sell Robinson to Trent or use 2 free transfers and sell Wood to Gakpo also? I like Chris Wood as an option, but buying Gakpo in the short term does make a lot of sense. Yeah, I think I'd buy Gakpo and Trent. You can always buy Chris Wood later in the season. Timber Munoz Kirkes start 2, says Junior. Another Man City fan. Good to see you. I would go for Timber and Daniel Munoz. Kirkes on the bench, reluctantly. I'm captaining Salah, mate, but Isak is still a good option despite the rumours of him being ill. I can do Moyes and Iraola, bringing in Kluivert, Semenyo for Gordon, and afford Asman. Nice. I think with my situation, it's a bit difficult. Buying Gordon recently has made it more challenging to use the assistant manager chip in Game Week 24. Who starts, Ahmad or Rodgers? For me, it's going to be Rodgers. Bench 1, Sarr, Ahmad, JP. Yeah, it's going to be Sarr again on the bench. Can't decide who to bench between Ahmad, Murphy and Chris Wood. it'll be Ahmad for me. Joao Pedro or Mbeumo. Mbeumo. So yeah, in terms of the Asman chip being better now in 24, it's in terms of the budget. That's what was mentioned by a viewer before. Robinson or Aina? Robinson. Start Rodgers or Robinson? Yeah, Rodgers. Just on Solanke, Pedro to Gakpo, Isak. I like that. And hopefully Isak does play for our sakes. I think he will. But of course there is that rumour flying around. Jackson to Gakpo or to Vissa long term. I mean, long term is Vissa, right? But I bought Gakpo myself. You can always, buy Gakpo for now, and then around 26, 27, you can sell to Vissa. Bench 1, Chris Wood, Eze, Raul. It's probably going to be Raul Jimenez benched. So yeah, let's see what else we've got. Yeah, Nuclear Arms, I did answer your question. And no need for caps, mate. I would bench Joao Pedro. Bench Ahmad or Elanga. I would bench Elanga. Start Murphy or Ahmad. Murphy. Alisson or Pickford. If I'm buying a goalkeeper this week, it's Alisson, but my overall preference looking long-term is Pickford, right? Alisson's got the better fixture this week, but you can also triple up with Liverpool in so many different ways with Arne Slot, with Van Dijk, Kanate, Trent, Gakpo, Diaz, Salah. But yeah, for me, it's going to be Pickford. That's my favourite goalkeeper to buy. Bench 1, Foden or Palmer. That's extremely difficult. Foden's been in brilliant form. Palmer is the sort of option you never want to bench. I'm going to say Foden, but I don't. Yeah, just don't bench Palmer. Any team leaks? No, I don't think so. Why Gakpo over Nunez? Well, Gakpo started 10 consecutive games in the Premier League. One brace off the bench isn't going to change that. Darwin started in the Champions League in midweek. Didn't really do much. And I think Gakpo has been clutch for Liverpool in the last couple of months, actually. I think Diaz is a decent purchase. I think the news of Jota being injured for the next couple of weeks makes him a little bit more appealing. But even just like Gakpo, there is always that chance that he's not going to start the next 3 matches, which is what you ultimately want. I prefer Gakpo, personally, but Diaz is definitely decent. Oh yeah, and when Kluivert can get, say, Iraola. Right, I didn't fully understand that, but maybe my brain is just fried at this point. Black Shadow says, hey Dylan, bench 1, Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Murphy, Sarr, Haaland, JP, and Chris Wood. Sarr. I'd start the rest. Start Bruno or Robinson? Bruno. Jackson to Gakpo or to Vissa long term? That's been covered. Hey Dylan, which 2 to start? JP, Elanga, Gabriel, Sarr. Gabriel and Joao Pedro. Jeff Rogers says start 2 out of Kirkes, Robinson, Munoz, and Vandenberg. Robinson and Munoz. Play Fulham or Forest defender. If the Fulham defender is Robinson, I'd start him. Otherwise, I'd favour Forest. With Robinson, the difference maker is the assist potential. Start Wood or Semenyo, Chris Wood. Starting Rodgers seems a better option, but Everton at home is so tempting. I'm guessing that's then Joao Pedro. Yeah, I get that. I think you're probably correct about it. As mentioned before about Ndai, good player, very good dribbler, is capable of some moments of magic. He's not going to offer the consistency, and I think it'll be very frustrating. Now look, he's got a double game week, right? I don't think it's a terrible choice. If you've got Jimenez or Strand Larsen, you might want to make that sort of transfer in 24. And the alternative, of course, is Calvert-Lewin. But yeah, with Everton assets, I need a bit more convincing with their attackers. More Asman-chip Forzas, Richard Miller-chip. There may be bigger, better double gimmicks in the future, but playing Asman then means wildcard, bench boost, free hit, triple captain can't be played at the same time. I think those other chips are better for later double game weeks. Yeah, I mean, one potential plan for me is free hit 29, assistant manager in 31, but yeah, I get that because during that free game week period, you can't use any other chips. But if I do decide to use the Asman chip in 36, I can use all the others because I've used my triple captaincy already. I can use all the others earlier, so that won't be an issue for me. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I think it's all team dependent. For those with all chips available, it's definitely something to weigh up when making your final chip strategies. Alvin says bench Robinson, Aina, and Semenyo for Boros, Sarr, and Rodgers. Yeah, looks decent. I would consider starting Semenyo over Salah. Your match predictions, I'll cover that very soon. I'll try to do it, before the deadline closes, but I usually do it after that happens. For more context, Trent, Robinson, Aina, Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Murphy, Rogers, Isak, Wood, Jackson, Borro, Dean, Jackson to Gakpo, Watkins, or Roll. Yeah, I prefer Gakpo, but Watkins is absolutely fine. Even rolling is decent because in your case, you probably bench Rogers, right? Yeah, as mentioned before, I'd start Murphy over Rogers. Yeah, I think I'd go for Gakpo. If you're going to buy Gakpo next week anyway, or you want that third Liverpool player and you prefer an attacker, I'd just go about it in that sort of way and bench Rogers. Not necessary though. So Gakpo starts apparently according to Footy Insights, formerly known as Anfield Insights. I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll see if I can jinx Gakpo. Expected points for Rogers and JP. So yeah, I did show the expected points, not of those players actually. I just showed it of my players. We'll go to Draft Hound and see what they're saying for those. So for Joao Pedro, they are going for 3.7. Even Veltman's got higher, for bloody sake. As for Rogers, 4.6. So just like me, they've got a preference for Morgan Rogers, but it is close. It's not like a clear-cut answer. Very, very fine margins between them. FPL Elmer says start two between Rogers, Wood, and Mbumo. It'll be the latter two. I'd bench Rogers. I would also start Rogers over Iwobi there. Hype. Big Sam puts his team. Yeah, it's definitely okay. It's a very solid squad. Anything you could change? Maybe Kirkes or Robinson over Nico Williams. Just something to bear in mind, but I can see why you're backing Forest defensively. Yeah, I'd maybe consider that defender change with your starting 11, but in terms of transfers, you're pretty good to go. Yeah, you've got free Liverpool already. You might want to buy Pickford for sales next week, or for Robert Sanchez, but spending 10 million on goalkeepers is far from ideal. And then, of course, Mikolenko or Tarkovsky, Ashley Young for any of your defenders is another shout for you in 24. But you only need one Everton player, in my opinion, or you'd only want one. I think two is just a luxury. Which two to play? Robinson, Munoz, Aina, and Kirkes. Yeah, for me, it's going to be Robinson and Munoz, but very close. Thank you, Cousin. I think Cousin FC. If I butchered it, I apologize. Can't get to Gakpo without using free transfers. Yeah, that's what I mean. If it's really difficult to get to Gakpo and it incurs a hit or multiple transfers and then results in hits further down the line, just keep it simple. Going for Trent and Van Dijk is absolutely fine. Start two from Semenyo, Wood, and JP. It's going to be Wood and Joao Pedro, but very close. Welcome, VE Portfolio. Hi, Legend. Ahmad or Palmer? It's going to be Palmer for me in the starting 11. I don't like benching the likes of Salah, Saka when he's available, Palmer. Yeah, Gakpo starts hearing also. Okay, we've got a bit of early news then, it looks like, flying around. Milenkovic or Robinson? I'd go for Robinson. Good to see you. Oh, Desma. Dylan, buenas tardes. Who to bench, Rogers or Mbumo? I would bench Rogers, and if you look at predicted points according to Draft Hound, they've got 5.2 for Mbumo and 4.6 for Rogers. There is a link in the description below if you want to check out Draft Hound. A lot of you have signed up already, but let's move on, or back to my FPL team, and lock things in. They have changed the website, by the way, a little bit. I'm not sure if you are aware of it. The bench looks different, mainly. Just in time when I was changing my own graphics, it seems like the FPL website had a similar idea. Lewis to Konate, Raya to Allison, or Roll? Lewis to Konate is my favourite. Robinson or Aina to start? Robinson as covered before. I would start Rogers over Ahmad. I did cover your question, by the way. Start Ahmad or Semenyo? Yeah, it's going to be Ahmad just about. I don't think Saliba starts, but there is an outside chance. He wasn't definitively ruled out. Ashwin says, hey, Dylan needs some advice. Sells, Henderson, Gabriel, Trent, Hall, Robinson, Mikolenko, Salah, Palmer, Gordon, Gibbs-White, Rogers, JP, Isak, Gakpo. Roll or bring in Richarlison, Semenyo for a hit? It's going to be roll. I know Richarlison plays Leicester. Spurs attackers could be very appealing this week. Semenyo's not shabby, by the way, but I'd avoid the hit for now and roll. The other players was too expensive to buy, says Easy99. Start Rogers or Wood? Chris Wood. Hey Dylan, good luck for the game week. Likewise, should I bench Robinson or Milenkovic? Very close. I've been asked this a lot of times in terms of Forest versus Fulham, and I get it. I'd go for Robinson purely for the assist threat, which he also has. Milenkovic has decent set piece opportunities. He's very good in those situations, but yeah, it's going to be Robinson for me. And bench Ahmad and Wood. Yeah, it's Chris Wood over Ahmad for me, if that's the question. Trossard Martinelli may be good shout for Mbeumo. I wouldn't be selling Mbeumo to an Arsenal midfielder. Definitely not. Are those two midfielders decent shouts? Yes, but I wouldn't be selling Mbeumo. Thank you, Odesma. Twisted Parky puts his squad, 2 free transfers. Any thoughts or starting ideas? Yeah, I'm happy with what you've gone for. I wouldn't start Rodgers over anyone there. Maybe Chris Wood is debatable, but that's really it. Defensively, Howson over Robinson is the only debate to be had. I'm happy with what you've gone for. In terms of transfers, yeah, triple up in Liverpool. You can do sells to Pickford next week. I'd keep things as they are, Twisted Parky, if I'm completely honest. I don't think you need to make a transfer. If you do something like Vandenberg or Howson out and get a better defender for this week, it'd be a luxury. Bruno and Pedro out for Gakpo and Kulusevski, says Nuclear Atoms. Yeah, I'd go for it. Kulusevski, I've said this before, despite the recent returns, and maybe he is becoming more efficient in front of goal and getting more assists, he doesn't strike me as that sort of player who churns out goal contributions very regularly, but he has been improving in that he's a quality player for Spurs. And with this fixture against Leicester, I'm not against that. And Gakpo, of course, speaks for himself. I'd go for the moves. They have changed the bench, a bit of a pointless change. Yeah, I mean, for myself, who has to like resize stuff in terms of like all of my scenes, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. I mean, I've got to also change it for the FPL video section, but it is what it is, right? It's just more work to do. But yeah, I mean, does it look better? You can let me know in the live chat. Thoughts on Raya to Alisson? I'm not against it. I think buying Alisson's absolutely fine. But it's just team dependent. Someone else asked me about should I sell Raya to Alisson or Lewis to Konate, and from that, I prefer Lewis to Konate. It doesn't mean I don't like Alisson. Thank you, Ashwin. Hopefully it goes well for you. Reese says, ¿qué opinas sobre Konate? Se lesiona bastante, pero es un muy buen defensor. Para mí va a jugar todos los partidos en la Premier. Pero también hay mucho tiempo entre los dos partidos en la jornada 24, cuando Liverpool juega con Bournemouth y Everton. Y si Konate no juega en las copas, ahí tendría más confianza que va a jugar en los dos partidos de la Premier League. Pero sí, para mí Konate está bien, pero si tienes el dinero, para mí Trent Alexander-Arnold y Van Dijk son muchos mejores. Tienen más potencial para hacer un gol o, en el caso de Trent, anotar asistencias. Best Tottenham asset? It's between Maddison and Kulusevski. With the current circumstances, I'd take a punt on Maddison, but it might be a very short-term move once Johnson and Solanke are back. No Isak update, unfortunately. It's just the rumours flying around of him potentially being ill, facing a late fitness test. Yeah, Fantasy Challenge Squad, I'll cover that very soon. Start Kirkus or Castagna. This would be Kirkus for me. If you ask about Robinson, it's slightly different. Thank you, Punjabi. We are close to 200 likes, and hopefully we can get to more than that. That would be greatly appreciated. Also subscribe to the channel. We are making slow progress towards 32,000. We're going to get there eventually, especially with all the UCL fantasy content headed your way. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But yeah, we're literally now 20 likes away. Let's get to 200 before the end of the stream. Gabriel or Robinson? It'd be Gabriel and Ahmad. With your questions, Rui Costa. I'd bench Jackson. But yeah, Robinson over Gabriel, nah, not for me. Wicked, looking to get Pickford next week, then a Bournemouth attack in 25. Yeah, and you've still got an extra free transfer on top of it, so that looks good. I would rather captain Isak over Trent, but even Draft Pound, actually, they have changed it. I think Trent is slightly ahead of Isak. I'm not a big fan of captaining and vice-captaining players of the same team, just in case there is a postponement. You never know what can happen. It's a very small chance, but it exists. So I always recommend vice-captaining a player from a different team if you can. Thoughts on benching Bruno for Joao Pedro? I see why you're thinking about it. But Bruno has a good record against Fulham. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Seems like they changed it to incorporate an icon for the Assman. You might be right about that, Neskis. Let's have a quick look here. Is it? But to be fair, I think they already had, because they used to have the mystery chip, right? So I think they always had it. But maybe you are right. Maybe I'm missing a detail. It's just I think it's already been in place. Okay, so let's whiz through these. Any kind of different questions, hopefully. They will be answered. Is it worth going Bruno to Gordon? I like Gordon. I think he is an upgrade on Bruno, but when you also factor in fixtures and blank gimmick 29, then it becomes a bit hazy. As a one-week punt, yeah, I think Gordon against Southampton looks amazing. After that, though, I'm not sure if buying Gordon from gimmick 25 onwards, for example, makes a lot of sense. I personally went too late with that transfer. I'd probably keep Bruno. Raul or Sarr? Raul Jimenez. Gracias también para vos, Reese. Palmer captain shout. I'm more open to it than I was yesterday. He's facing a depleted City side who lost 4-2 in the Champions League against PSG despite being 2-0 up. Yeah, I still prefer Salah and Isak. Maybe even Trent, but Palmer is always up there. He's a great captaincy option. We know this. Start Ahmad or Rodgers? Rodgers. Is Gakpo worth a -4, says Path. I have to do Joao Pedro and Bruno to Gakpo and Rodgers. Seems it won't be worth it. I get that. I'd probably wait until next week in this case, but very fine margins. It could pay off. It's just not absolutely guaranteed. Thank you, Weising, and it's good to see you. I know it's late, somewhat late. I think it's you probably like the timings of these streams with the deadlines as well. Wish I could triple captain from my dad's team. Oh, transfer the triple captain. I get that, but that'd be cheating, wouldn't it? I so wish I hadn't used my triple captain. We had no idea what the season was going to look like. Well, I get that. You probably used it on Haaland, right, against Southampton. That was very unfortunate. He should have scored more goals in the day. Luckily enough for me, I used it, you know, I got a good outcome from it against Ipswich Town, but you need a lot of luck with these chips and in the game in general. I'd start Joao Pedro over Sarr there, Ezra. Play Pickford or Raya this week. Raya. That's why for most people I recommend selling Raya to Pickford next week and not now. Yeah, Konate is absolutely fine. If you can't go to Van Dijk or Trent, I'd recommend Konate. So it's not ideal. And as I said in Spanish a couple of minutes ago, with Konate, he is fairly injury prone. His minutes could be managed, but with the big gap between the Bournemouth and Everton games in the Premier League, if Konate doesn't start in those cup competitions, you'd back him to start in the Premier League, and that would bode well for your FPL prospects. Ahmad, Sarr, Joao Pedro, bench one. Sarr. Apparently Gakpo starts. I'm not sure how reliable these sources are, but if I'm not mistaken, Anfield Insights, who have changed their name on Twitter, they've reported it, and they have been quite reliable with Liverpool news in the past. Thank you, Path. Good luck to you as well. Sanchez to Pickford or Mazraoui to Mikalenko? Sanchez to Pickford. Start Rodgers or Elanga? Rodgers. Palmer or Murphy? I'd start Palmer, but I'd try to find a way to sneak Jacob Murphy in there. Diaz and Havertz or Gakpo and Martinelli? Gakpo and Martinelli, but quite close actually. Joao Pedro or Kluivert, Sells and goal? Joao Pedro, but just about, and I don't know why I keep recommending to start him. He's been terrible. Went for family dinner. We'll be there during the reaction stream. There might not be one tonight, because yeah, I'll let you know. But if I'm not free, then it'll have to be tomorrow, most likely. But I'll keep you posted either way, and don't worry about that. I appreciate you tuning in anyway. We've only got a couple of minutes left until the deadline. Let's get through these. Penguino says start Munoz, even though I've got Mbumo starting, or just play Robinson. Well, I prefer Robinson over Munoz anyway, so that will be my advice. But I get your question. You don't want to have a defender up against an attacker in your same setup. Start Pedro, Gabriel, or Murphy. I'm going to say Murphy, but yeah, Gabriel is not someone you'd want to bench or sell, which I did this week. So if he does score, you know why. Rodgers or Elanga to start. Rodgers. Diaz is fine, but I prefer Gakpo, and it's all team dependent. You might need a midfielder transfer, which maybe makes more sense for you to buy Diaz instead. Khan says bench one. of Semenyo, Ahmad, and Timber Munoz. I would bench Munoz and Semenyo reluctantly. So essentially, I'd start Timber and Ahmad. Pedro or Raul? Raul Jimenez, just about. I'd start Ahmad over Jackson Ree. Bench Rodgers or Diallo? I'd bench Ahmad. Yep, 5 minutes to lock in, and now it's literally about 4 minutes, 3 minutes. So yeah, 2 defenders, 5 million besides Gabriel, Van Dijk, Robinson. Probably an Everton defender for the double, so that could be Tarkovsky, Young, or Mikalenko. The other one being Kirkes in the long term, and Howson's absolutely fine. The guy in my league always gets it right. He says Gakpo starts. Fair enough. Good news, I guess. Start Munoz, even though I've just... Yeah, sorry, I covered that. Free hit? No. I would recommend saving that for later in the season. By the way, my laptop's bloody hot. Jesus. Sorry. Yeah, if you want a best free hit team, I mean, I could build one maybe quickly, but it's not going to have a lot of thought into it. But I'd triple up on Liverpool. I think Gakpo, Trent, Salah would kind of make that. I'd go for Gabriel. Then it becomes a bit difficult, but yeah, Isak, Gordon, Lewis Hall. That's the kind of setup I'd go for. Then it's just shaping the remaining squad players and options in the starting 11. Hall captain must be big. Yeah, look, I think Southampton could score against Newcastle, so I probably wouldn't do it, but he's been in brilliant form for the last 8-9 game weeks. I would go for Mbeumo, mate. Mbeumo over Rodgers. John Ham says, should I do Aina to Trent and Fernandes to Mbeumo, or Fernandes to Mbeumo and Wood to Gakpo? I prefer the Aina to Trent move, and then Fernandes to Mbeumo. Ismaila Sarr or Calvert-Lewin Sarr? Rank these: Maddison, Murphy, Szoboszlai for this week. It's probably the way you've actually listed them. I am thinking about Murphy first. That is crossing my mind. I'm going to go for Maddison first. Yeah, Murphy second. Bench 2, Jimenez, Robinson, Ahmad, Nico Williams. I'd bench Nico Williams and Robinson. I'd start Ahmad with Jimenez and favour the attackers there. Lewis says start Szoboszlai, Ahmad, Rodgers, Cash. How many are we talking about? 1 to start, 3 to start. Rodgers will be my preference overall. It's looking like Diaz bench for Nunez. Wow. Okay, so we have gotten... Sorry, Twister Parky says he has been right for 2 years. But yeah, let me know where you got the Darwin news from. Thank you, Armin. Good to see you. Start 1, Gabriel, Munoz, Robinson. Gut is to bench Gabriel. I'd personally bench Munoz, but you got to back your gut. And, you know, if you feel Arsenal will concede and Gabriel won't score, then, yeah, don't just force him in because of effective ownership or what an idiot called FPL Dylan tells you. But if it's me, I'm going to start Robinson and Gabriel. I think Brentford do score. Their away record isn't great, though, which might bode well for your Palace assets. They've kept 2 clean sheets in a row. But it is a home game for them as well. I do think they're better away from home. I'd go for Gabriel, personally, alongside Robinson. So yeah, there are rumours of Darwin starting. I haven't seen them myself. I'm going to try verify it very quickly, but I'm not sure if I will be able to. It does seem like the Twitter search function isn't as good as it used to be. So yeah, if you've got a link, drop it in the live chat and we'll have a look. That'd be massively appreciated. Yeah, I covered the super chat, right? Unless there's another one. So yeah, Armin's question is covered. Vandenberg or Mikalenko? For this week, it would be Vandenberg, but very small margins between them. So yeah, I think Diaz is bench for Nunez. Yeah, I appreciate that. If you got a link, drop it. Lewis, Savio, KDB. What's that about? Oh, they all start. Start Robinson or Timber. Timber. Oh, they're on the bench. Lewis, Savio, KDB benched. That'd be... Wow, Marmoush, Haaland and Foden start. All right, I appreciate that. Sanchez or Fabianski? Probably Fabianski this week. Kirkes, Nico Williams, Robinson, bench 1, already playing cells. I'd bench Nico Williams. I'd diversify your defensive line. Yeah, let's lock in now. Literally a few seconds. Rodgers or Joao Pedro? Rodgers, as covered before. Good luck, Dylan. Dropped out of the top 10 last week, so hoping for more luck this week. Yeah, but you're in a great position. Yeah, hopefully you can get back into that top 10, occupy first for at least a little while. But I do wish you the best, and hopefully we have an FPL winner. in our league again. We've got some really competitive managers in the FPL mini league. I think number 1 is 9th in the world. Obviously, you're right up there. You must be 2nd or 3rd in that league. So credit to you, and hopefully you can push on and do even better, which is hard to do. Let's put it that way. But yeah, the deadline has closed. And yeah, if you want to talk for a little while longer, we can do so. But let's go through some predictions, since I have been asked about that for quite a while. And let's also briefly discuss FPL Challenge. So Bournemouth versus Forest. I love saying 1-1 between, any fixture involving Forest. I might do it again here. Yeah, I'm feeling a 1-1 draw between Bournemouth and Forest. Brighton, Everton. Difficult one to predict. That Brighton are such an inconsistent team. I'm going to go for Brighton 2, Everton 1. I was thinking about 2-2, I'm not going to lie. I might go back to that. Liverpool, Ipswich Town, a bit more straightforward. Just how many goals do they win by? I'm going to go for Liverpool 3 or 4. I'm going to go for Liverpool 3, Ipswich Town 0. Southampton, Newcastle. I'm going to go for something a bit hectic here. Southampton 1, Newcastle 4. Wolves, Arsenal. There's 3 scorelines that kind of I'm juggling between. So 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. I think Wolves 0, Arsenal 1. That's my current feeling right now. Yeah. Man City, Chelsea. Difficult game to predict as well. Man City 3, Chelsea 2. Crystal Palace, Brentford. Yeah, Crystal Palace 2, Brentford 1. Spurs, Leicester. Spurs 3, Leicester 1. Aston Villa, West Ham. This could also be another 3-1 here. Aston Villa 3, West Ham 2. And then Fulham, Man United. Let's go for a 2-1. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw between Fulham and Man United. But yeah, there's a few I'm a bit unsure about, including Brighton. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. And let's go to FPL Challenge before I forget. And let's actually build a team. So players that have been signed in January will score double points. If Marmoush is starting, let's add him into our team. That's very nice. And let's put Isak. It's unlimited budget. In the midfield, Salah. Defense, let's put Alexander-Arnold. And in goal, I'm thinking about Alisson, to be fair. It's Alisson or Raya. Let's jinx Liverpool. No offense to any Liverpool fans watching. I mean, you'll probably still have a very successful season, but gotta do what I gotta do, right? Yeah, Salah captain, looks amazing. Enjoy. Yeah, amazing. All right, that's my current team. It's not locked in. It's definitely not locked in, and there could be a change or two. But yeah. Let me actually have a look on Twitter and see if I can find any news here. So yeah, I haven't been able to see the tweets you lot have been on about. Yeah, I haven't seen anything about Darwin. I'll have to go back to that later. Yeah, Marmoush is expected to start tonight, as is Kusanov. Wow. Talk about an instant impact we could see. So yeah, let me know what you think. Extra HD, the FPL Challenge team is on screen. Bench Palmer, bro. Nah, man. I'm sorry, but Palmer's the type of player I don't like benching. Benching headache, bench 1. Rodgers, Joao Pedro, and Bumo Palmer. Well, the deadline has passed, but I would have benched Joao Pedro from those 4. In Bumo Palmer starting, then it's a shootout between Rodgers and Joao Pedro, and I'd start Rodgers. Yeah, locked indeed. Good luck, Gary. Easy99 says, I transferred out Enzo to Gravenberch with limited budget. Not a big fan of that. I think Gravenberch is a good player. Maybe he's got something for you, a goal in the next 3 games, but he's a very defensive-minded player in this system. He's dictating the play, controlling the tempo. It might work for you. I mean, the Damsgaard punt a couple of months ago did, but not a big fan. Thank you, Punjabi. That is the hope and the aim. Green Arrows, entertainment. Is it going to happen? Find out after the break. City says, Dylan, I'm so excited for Marmoush. Yeah, I mean, January signings must be nice, right? I wish I could say the same thing. Free hit or wild card or a -4 hit for Liverpool triple up next week? -4 hit would be my preference. Shame I can't watch Marmoush, never actually got to watch him in the Bundesliga. I've seen very little of him, mainly highlights. He looks like some player, and if he can churn out those goal contributions from the get-go, he's going to be a very popular FPL option very soon if that's the case. So Easy99 has gone for Alisson, Hall, Salah, Isak, Captain, Mateta. I like that. Will Kinski start for Tottenham for FPL Challenge? I think he will. He is slightly doubtful, and it seems like the entire Tottenham team is, but yeah, I think Kinski does start. I did the last-minute move of Bruno and Pedro out for Kulusevski and Gakpo. Benched in Mbumo since I have Henderson in goal. All the best. That's the only decision I think that could backfire, I guess, but you can't have it all, you know. You're always going to have bench points at some point, and you just got to hope it's not this week. Good luck, Dylan. Decided to just do one free transfer, selling Robinson to Trent. Next week, planning to bring in DCL. One of Gakpo, Alisson, Pickford for Raya, Joao Pedro, Wood. My current recommendation would be Gakpo in for Joao Pedro, if he can. That would look amazing, but they're all solid transfers. Should I use my bench boost? I have Joao Pedro, Verbruggen, Kirkers and Dalot on my bench. It's a solid one. I'll give you that. I probably wouldn't. I think Dalot himself maybe lets you down. But yeah, it's a decent bench. I mean, could it score 15 plus points, which makes a decent use of the chip? Yeah. So I'm not against it, but I probably wouldn't have done it. Easy99 says 2-2 between Forest and Bournemouth. 3-1 Liverpool. 3-2 Chelsea. 3-1 Fulham. Interesting. Chelsea, please win. Honestly, I don't care. Any result, yeah, at this point, probably don't care. Bournemouth 1, Forest 0, Brighton 2, Everton 0. Liverpool 3, Ipswich 0. 2-0 win for Newcastle. 2-1 Arsenal. 2-1 Man City. 1-1 Palace Brentford. 2-1 Spurs. 2-0 Villa. 1-0 Fulham. Those are Twisted Parky's predictions. Ended up on Rodgers just for the hope that there will be a green arrow if today goes really bad. All the besting, yeah. A lot of Rodgers questions this week. Quite overwhelming, actually. I hope there'll be many goals in Chelsea City. Well, I went for 3-2 Man City. I think there will be, yeah. Both teams are poor defensively. Let's see if the new signings for City can make the difference. I think they will, if they do start. Can't wait for Echeverri to join City after the World Cup, isn't it? And also excited to watch Kusanov and the Egyptian Prince to play tonight. Might be premature to call him Egyptian Prince, but I get it. You know, you're backing your players. Yeah, Echeverri scored twice against Brazil. He's got a good record against them in the youth level system. He's got a lot of potential. That's definitely for sure. Marmoush in Gameweek 29 actually might be good. Yeah, you seem excited, and I don't blame you. Definitely one to look at. If I free hit in 29, I could see myself going to one of Haaland or Marmoush. But let's give it time. Does Marmoush play on the right wing? Saw that he plays forward in FPL. He can play on both wings, but I think it'll be Xavi on the left, Marmoush on the right. Maybe they interchange throughout the game. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, Marmoush has been added. He's a 7 million forward. I got my price prediction right, but not the position. I thought he'd be a mid and be out of position, like a lot of attackers are, like Mohamed Salah. Egypt have Marmoush and Salah. Yeah, and look at Sweden. They've got Gyökeres, Isak and Kulusevski. There's a lot of, promising attackers for some of these, should I say unorthodox countries? I mean, Egypt have a lot of history, of course, in AFCON, but it has been a while since we've seen them in the World Cup. Hopefully we do in the next one. Even with Marmoush starting, challenge this week is lame as hell. Should have been players from the past signed in January as well. Yeah, that's a good shout. Van Dijk would have entered that equation. Luis Diaz, that's a good shout. Of course, it looks like Diaz is benched here. I did okay in UCL Fantasy. It was a small green arrow, but it's very competitive. Like, you can get 80, 90 points and still get a red arrow. It's insane. Yeah, UCL has been a bit frustrating. I mean, I started Alisson over Di Gregorio. Stuff like that. I'll cover it very soon in the team selection, which will probably be out on Tuesday, because remember, it's a Wednesday deadline for UCL Fantasy. I've Gavardi on the bench. I don't blame you there. He might score, but I'd be surprised if City keep a clean sheet. Who would have been a better pick, Murillo or Robinson? Very close, but I would have gone for Robinson simply for the attacking threat. Danny says JP, Gabby and Raya to Gakpo. Gakpo, Burn and Pickford, or Raya to Alisson. It would have been right to Alisson, I think. Just keep it simple. Yeah. If I understood your question correctly and your statement. Savio ain't starting though, just twisted Parky. Oh yeah, you did say yeah. Savio, KDB, and Lewis, right, on the bench. Yeah. I just think long term, should I say, Savio left, Marmoush right. But if that's the case, Savio benched in back-to-back Premier League games. That's a bit odd. Should Liverpool have gone for Marmoush? Surely Salah could have influenced him. The thing is, though, Liverpool have attacking depth. I know Jota's always injured, but there's still Darwin Nunez, Diaz, Salah, yeah, Cody Gakpo. I don't think that was really a priority for Liverpool, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you could say for backup for Salah. I mean, if he's injured, Liverpool could be screwed, you could say, but yeah, maybe. A bit of right-wing depth, but there's also Chiesa, right, if he can stay fit. Marmoush's own favourite position is 10. But that's what I mean, he can play anywhere, even as a false 9 potentially, and also across any of the winger positions. Yeah, I was thinking about Punjabi, but I'll be honest, everyone just calls it Twitter still, right? Or most people do. But maybe one day. I've already changed a lot of graphics recently. I'm not sure if that's really worth spending more time on, because I do it for all of the different screens and all the different types of videos. Cunha transfer rumour stay or leaving? Well, he's also linked to Nottingham Forest. A lot of Wolves fans believe he will be sold in the next couple of days. I think Forest have a great chance of signing him, and that would be a real statement, by the way. I don't see him going to Arsenal, and even if he does, it's not enough. Arsenal need 2 quality attackers at least. Let's wait and see. Was Wood to Gakpo a good choice or no? I'm not a big fan of selling Chris Wood, but short term I do think Gakpo outscores him, so the answer would be yes, I think it is. But Chris Wood is fixture-proof, regardless. Marmoush in for Gordon in challenge? Possibly. Well, Marmoush is a forward, just the Parky, so as you can see with my team, Marmoush is up front with Isak. Or maybe you're just saying, maybe I'm being stupid. Maybe you're going to switch Gordon and switch the formation. Fair enough. I prefer Gordon, I think. I might even switch it myself. It's just Marmoush being the January signing. Looks quite appealing, right? Double points. It's close. It's close. Right now, I might just jinx Marmoush myself. No offense to any City fans. Man City have an important game in UCL this week. Club Brugge only need to draw. City should win, though, and that's good news for Arsenal, so to speak, because City will go full out in the Champions League. Arsenal can rotate and have a slight advantage next weekend. Savio was abysmal against PSG, trying to dribble out of pressure in his own half. Yeah, I know, but it was quite surprising because before that he was playing really well. Then he was benched against Ipswich Town. But yeah, he's a young player. He's going to make mistakes. I think Oscar Bob will be a massive boost for City once he's back. You know, he was going to be the starting right winger for City until his unfortunate injury. Callum Jr. says, yeah, there's been a lot of player hauls in the Champions League. Feels like 100 points is the target each week. Yeah, completely different from FPL this season. I have enjoyed UCL Fantasy more in the past, but then again, I was also doing better probably in those previous seasons. But I typically start okay in UCL, then I kind of grow into the competition. So if I end the league phase strongly, I'm quite confident I can put myself back on track and maybe get another top 1k finish, but it's going to be difficult. I think it'll be very challenging this season. Petros says, I bought in Kirkes and Mikalenko in place of Lewis and Aït-Nouri and played bench boost. Would it be worth bringing in Isak instead of Jackson? Yeah, I think so, but the deadline has obviously passed. You can't do that now. But even in Gameweek 25, for example, Isak is a massive upgrade on Jackson. It goes without saying. Hi Dylan, can you make sense of Forest placing a bid on Vissa when they just re-signed Wood and have Awani? I don't want to sound like a twat, but I'm being genuine. It's something called squad depth. Competition for places. Cunha can also play on the left, for example. Vissa can play in different areas, but mainly obviously as a striker. And I wouldn't be surprised if Awani was going to be sold fairly soon, maybe in the summer. He's very injury prone, not reliable, should I say, which is a shame because he's a decent striker. So it's just, I think, investing when you're in a position of strength. And it's something I wish Arsenal could do, but I'm talking to a brick wall, really. Wood and Cunha would potentially UCL comeback, says Easy99. If you're talking about Forest's, yeah, making UCL, they've got a good chance this season. If they don't do it now, it's going to be sticky. Yeah, I realised the error in my response to Stepaki, yeah. It's something to debate. I'm going for Marmoush simply for, you know, to have that January player and the double points. Hold Bruno over Gordon. That's the reason why I was quite keen to sell Bruno Fernandes and also to avoid him again when he was looking good against Liverpool and Arsenal very recently. Yeah, you're going to get inconsistencies, but with Gordon, the problem is he'll likely blank in 29 and the fixtures aren't great after Southampton. I think you probably look elsewhere at this point if you want to sell Bruno. It looks like Marmoush is going to play today, according to some sources. I haven't seen them myself, but I do trust the people in the live chat who have said them, and it's looking possible. Even the centre-back signing as well. This is my first week owning Wood, ready for blank. Yeah, don't be surprised. It is a tough game after all. But yeah, it's impossible for Chris Wood to maintain this form. He's going to blank eventually. Unwillingly had to bench Ahmad. Need Rodgers and Palmer to make it worth it. Yeah, not easy as a United fan, isn't it? But I would have done the same thing. Arsenal need a solid, strong, straightforward number 9 week in, week out. Yeah, I mean, imagine Isak in this team. I think Arsenal have a great chance of winning the league, even with their deficit to Liverpool right now. He makes such a massive difference, but yeah, it's not going to happen now. Which Bournemouth player do you like best for Gameweek 25 onwards? Kluivert is a slight preference of mine. He's on penalties. He's also got a high ceiling. He scored hat-tricks in not back-to-back games. He scored 2 hat-tricks this season. But Semenyo might be more consistent. So it's very, very close. But it would be Kluivert for me. Depending on how England clubs do in European competitions, England get 5 slots. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. And they probably will, actually. It's very likely. UCL Fantasy going way better than FPL. Up to 11k in UCL. Decatellare rewarding me, but at least I'm buying let me down. Yeah. It was looking like that suggestion I did of Decatellare wasn't actually going to pay off. And it was Retegui scoring the early goal. But that's why patience is very important. And yeah, I wish I could have gone for that sort of move myself. Instead, Mbappe, very disappointing for me. When Bob was playing, City were better. Guess that also counts for Rodri. I mean, they started the season very well. They won the first 4 games, drew to Arsenal. Although they were quite poor in that game, I have to say. They were a bit fortunate, in my opinion. But yeah, afterwards, they showed signs of vulnerabilities, barely being Southampton. They also narrowly got over the line against Fulham. But yeah, no one expected that fall, that drop-off from the Bournemouth game onwards and Spurs in the Carabao Cup. I have benched Castagna for Kirkes. Because of this, I'm starting Semenyo instead of Wood. Fair enough. I don't like benching Chris Wood, and I would have started him with Semenyo, but I get your logic. And I would have started Kirkes over Castagna, to be fair. If Arsenal want to win the Premier League, they have to invest big and sign Isak. Cunha won't score enough goals. I agree. But Isak will only be signed in the summer, and Newcastle will ask for a ridiculous fee. Will Arsenal pay it? I don't think so. I hope I'm proven wrong. I have the same 4 as you, but Kinski, very uneasy about Spurs in defence. That's one way of putting it. But it is Leicester, who have been toothless up front. Surely, if Spurs were to ever keep a clean sheet, it's not a bad time to do it. Surely 22 million for Vissa was a weak first proposal. Yeah, you'd expect Brentford to ask for double that, or at least 35 million. Wood is 33 years old. Forest needs some long-term replacements. That's true. And like I said, it's investing in a position of strength, and our knee is injury-prone. Are you going to use the AM chip? And why now? Well, probably not, because I need to make money to buy David Moyes. And in the case of Arne Slot, I've got triple Liverpool. I made my bed by buying Trent and Gakpo early. So I'll probably use it later in the season, Gameweek 31 to 33, or around Gameweek 35, 36. Hi Dylan, worth going with Everton players in 24? Thinking of Raul and Veltman out for Mikolenko and Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, Indai's another shout for you. Maybe Tarkovsky or Young instead of Mikolenko, but it's all dependent on budget. My favourite Everton asset is Pickford, but if you're happy with your goalkeeper, I think what you're doing there is absolutely fine. 1 Everton player is enough. Having 2 is obviously a bonus with that double game week. Yeah, I think that's a fairly decent set of transfers. Odegaard ill. Wouldn't be surprising. I mean, Arsenal have had illnesses, injuries, suspensions all season, but I appreciate the update if that is true. Speaking of Marmoush, wouldn't City benefit from Foden on the right and Marmoush on the left? Yeah. I mean, Foden can also play as the number 10, obviously. That's where his best football is played. And yeah, they've also got the option of Savio and Oscar Bob. They'll have a lot of squad depth all of a sudden in those positions. But you could be right. I think Marmoush can play on either side. So can Foden, but it really depends on the opposition as well. There was that kind of narrative last season that Foden is not as effective on the left, but he can still get a hat-trick. I think he did it against Brentford in that position. JBR says, I'm torn between using the wildcard next game week or later when Saka comes back. I want to triple up on Liverpool, but it will cost me a -4 hit. I'd rather just take the -4 hit and save the wildcard for later. Diaz starts, benched him last minute because of the news. Yeah, like I said, I didn't see the news myself of, you know, Darwin starting and Diaz benched. So, yeah, I do apologize for that. I did say take with a pinch of salt all the information. And yeah, I was asking for a link, but it wasn't provided, unfortunately. There is some Arsenal news, by the way. Saliba and Miles Lewis-Skelly are with the squad. Massive boost for Arsenal. Maybe both of them start. And Nwaneri is going to start for the Gunners. So we have some early news. Wait, is it early? Not really. I mean, the lineups are out, isn't it? Yeah, the lineups are out now. So this was posted 5 minutes ago or something. Let's just get these bloody lineups out and then call it a day, because we have been streaming for quite a while. So yeah, in terms of a reaction stream, I'll keep you posted. If it's not today, it's going to be probably tomorrow. And UCL fantasy content is also going to be on the horizon. But let's start with Liverpool. That is the most interesting, I think, with a lot of investment in their assets. So let's go to their lineup here. Diaz does start, as pointed out by some of our viewers. I think Salah's one of them. So let's get this up. So Alisson, Van Dijk, Konate, Diaz, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Salah, Gakpo, Robertson, Gravenberch and Trent. And that's why earlier I recommended avoiding Tsimikas if possible. You're going to get rotation at that left-back spot. All the other defenders, Konate, Van Dijk and Trent, are much better in FPL. So that's Liverpool's lineup. Should I go for Ipswich's? Is it really necessary? I mean, we'll go for it, but FPL terms, it's not really too relevant, I guess. So let's go to Ipswich's team and cover all the 3 PM lineups here. So Walton's in goal, Burns, Twanzebe, O'Shea, Greaves, Davis, Morsey, Phillips, Hutchinson, Jadon, which is a new signing for them, by the way, Philogene from Aston Villa, and Delap. And of course, Enciso's on the bench. So Ipswich have been active in this transfer market. Let's go to Arsenal's lineup, and also Wolves will be another one. So Saliba is back. He is back. He's starting. So yeah, maybe those that sold him might regret it. And I did recommend selling him because based on the news at the time, it looked like he was going to miss at least another game or two. But Raya's in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis-Skelly, Partey, Rice, Nwaneri, Martinelli, Havertz, Trossard. So Nwaneri in midfield, Martinelli on the right, Trossard on the left. They could interchange from time to time. Sterling on the bench. Calafiori is there, at least Kivior as well. Not too shabby, I guess. The bench looks a little bit better despite all the injuries, but yeah, and Nwaneri in the midfield. That is very interesting. Odegaard is out through illness. That is a big blow for the Gunners. The rest is obviously more positive. So I do appreciate those that let me know there. And let's see if Matheus Cunha starts. At the moment, I have no idea. I'm reacting to these lineups fresh. Yes, Matheus Cunha does start. Good news for Wolves, of course. So let's go through their lineup as well. So Jose Sarr in goal, Semedo, Doughty, Bueno. Sorry, Agbadu, 8 Nuri, Joao Gomez, Andre, Sarabia, Strand Larsen, and Cunha. So I didn't want to butcher any names there. I probably did anyway. So let's go to the other lineups as well. Any ones that we haven't covered. So Southampton, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Forest, Brighton, Everton. There's a lot of bloody lineups to go through. A lot of 3 PM kickoffs. Yeah. 1 second. So I had that here. All right, let's go to Southampton, Newcastle. Yeah, respectively, or with respect, I'm not going to go through Southampton's lineup. It's not very relevant, is it? No offense to any Saints fans watching. I hope you understand. So let's go to Newcastle. Let's see if Jacob Murphy gets the nod. Yes, he does. So Dubravka in goal, Cher, Joelinton, Tonali, Gordon, Isak, Hall, Livramento, Murphy, Byrne, and Bruno Guimaraes. So Isak does start despite the reported late fitness test and the illness that he had. In the back line, yeah, Botman is on the bench, isn't he? Yeah, he is. So anyone with Botman might be slightly frustrated. Burns starts, of course. And there we go. Let's see. I might as well just go for Southampton very briefly, may I add. Very, very briefly. So let's go to Southampton. So McCarthy, Walker-Peters, Bree, Bednarek, Harwood-Bellis, Manning, number 26, Aribo, Fernandez, Armstrong, and Onuachu. Ugochukwu, I think it is. Okay, I attempted it. Okay, apologies if I butchered his pronunciation. Some of these names have caught me off guard. Brighton, Everton, let's see. Of course, João Pedro, those that love the guy. Let's see if he starts. He probably does. So let's get this up on screen as well. So yeah. So Verbruggen, Lamptey, Dunk, Gruder, João Pedro, Welbeck, Baleba, Mitoma, Ayari, Van Heck, and Veltman. So good news there for me. I've got Veltman in my starting 11. Let's see if he can finally give me a return. Only one since I bought him in like 8-9 game weeks ago. A disastrous transfer, to say the least. Well, they might not be the most appealing this week, but for Double Game Week 24, it's worth looking at Everton and seeing what sort of lineup they go for. So let's see what they've gone for here. So, Pickford in goal, obviously. Just waiting for this to load. Apologies for the delay. O'Brien, Tarkovsky, Branthwaite, Mikalenko, Mangala, Idrissa Gana Gay, Lindstrom, Decore, Ndai, and Calvert-Lewin. Maybe a return from Ndai or Calvert-Lewin will make me more, open to making that sort of switch. But my current plan is to buy Mikalenko for Colwill or Veltman. And maybe for a -4 here, I'll get Pickford. Although Sells is still a decent option to hold, and I just bought him in, to be honest. So finally, let's go to the last set of lineups. Definitely not least, of course. That will be Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest. And that's probably the best game of the early matches, dare I say. I think it is. Two good sides going at it. So let's get Bournemouth's lineup here on screen. Alright, so it'll be Kepa in goal. Howson, Kirkes, Cook, Brooks, Christie, Ouattara, Adams, Kluivert, Semenyo, ready to give me some bench pain, of course, and Zabani. And finally, Nottingham Forest, one of the best teams in the Premier League this season. Let's get them up on bloody screen. Yeah, let's get them up. So thank you to those that reminded me of the lineups, because I almost forgot, I'm not going to lie. I like to switch off a little bit from FPL once the streams are done, but of course this is still going on. So Sells, Murillo, Williams, Anderson, Gibbs-White, Chris Wood, Jota starts, Elanga, Yates, Milenkovic, and Aina. And yes, that's not Diogo Jota, by the way. That is the Nottingham Forest Jota getting the nod there in the lineup. So yeah, it looks like Hudson-Odoi does miss out through that slight issue he had. But apart from that, pretty much what you'd expect from Nottingham Forest. So let me know your thoughts in the live chat. All the lineups have been covered. Diaz does start despite the late rumours of Darwin getting the nod over him. So hopefully you didn't get caught out by that and you went for your desired starting 11. So I've gone for Sells, Trent, Veltman, Robinson, Salah as my captain, Mbumo, Palmer, Gordon, Gakpo, Chris Wood, and Isak, with Valdimarsson, Semenyo, Vandenberg, and Colwill on the bench. I was decisive with my moves this week, taking a -4 hit, selling Gabriel, what could possibly go wrong, and I sold Nicholas Jackson to get those Liverpool players. And like I said before, the plan is to get an Everton asset or two for Double Game Week 24. I probably won't use the assistant manager chip anytime soon, but never say never, of course. One transfer can lead to another, and then a domino effect. It might give me enough money to then go for David Moyes, but it's unlikely, just to put it that way. And it was all covered in my team selection video yesterday in detail. There is more content headed your way for FPL and UCL Fantasy. So for that format, there will be a Limitless and Wildcard team rolled into one, my team selection, and a deadline stream on Wednesday. And that's going to be chaotic with all the lineups at the same time for match day 8. So let's cover some final questions and comments before wrapping up. I appreciate those that have tuned in for the last 3 hours or so. So yeah, Saliba does start, yeah. Odegaard and Marino out. I did forget about Marino, to be fair. Yeah, it's just story of Arsenal season. One player's back, oh, another one's out. It is what it is. For fudge's sake, Diaz is starting, yeah. I did recommend to everyone watching, by the way, I'm not, changing history. I did say I'd start Diaz anyway. If I saw the news myself and the link and I saw it's a reliable one, then I would have obviously changed my stance. But with Diaz, you start him or not, pretty much. You don't want to bench a player with that fixture. Yeah, I mean, they could score, to be fair. I did go for 1-0 earlier. I might change that prediction. Would you take one of Gakpo or Diaz at Arsenal? Probably, yeah. I don't think they're amazing players, so I do get your point. Ultimately, I'd want someone even better like Isak up front, Nico Williams on the left, who hasn't had a great season, by the way, at Athletic Bilbao. Former Saliba owners praying for a Wolves goal. Mate, I saw Gabriel. I hope he scores a bullet header. Arsenal win, Liverpool drop points, and I suffer an FPL. If that's what it means, I'd take it, but you don't get what you want always, do you? In an ideal world, of course, I do well in FPL and Arsenal win the league. What's Enwinner's best position? Well, he is an attacking midfielder by trade, but he can play as an 8. He can play on the right wing, and he played very well in Saka's absence against Brighton. And unfortunately, he got injured during that game, I think. Chase says number 26. Yeah, sorry, it was a difficult name. I got caught off guard. This 3 p.m. blackout nonsense has to stop, and those who pay for the full Sky TNT sports packages are being scammed. 100%. I couldn't have put it better myself. It is what it is, though. So Dara says, so Asim LFC just deleted the Nunez starts tweet. It's typical, right? From people who give these leaks, you know, if they get it wrong, they're going to delete the tweet. Arsenal could still go for Osimhen. They could, but will they? Probably not. Would age as well, though. Whoa, pause. It outlasts us all, too. Definite pause. Hey, Dylan and chat, I sold Ahmad for Kluivert, and do you think Marmoush and Kushanov start? The reports indicate that both of them are starting against Chelsea today. Ahmad for Kluivert, I like a Bournemouth asset long term. Not sure if I would have sold Ahmad yet, though, but not a bad transfer. City elimination from UCL will be happy news from another Premier League team with 115 charges. I think they'll win against Club Brugge. Currently 7-1-1 in challenge. Wow, really good stuff. I'm nowhere near that, I think. I don't believe Osimhen is going anywhere. For Arsenal, it's between Sesko and Cunha. Yeah, that's the most realistic one. A player I'd like Arsenal to sign is Mbeumo for January and then get Isak in the summer, but it's not happening. I keep saying that, but I'm just not really optimistic with Arsenal and in the transfer window. Thank you, Chase. Good to see you and all the best. Arsenal have a great February month in the Premier League. Which Arsenal mid or attacker would you transfer in starting in Game Week 25? Well, it's between Havertz, Martinelli and Trossard, right? Based on current form, I'd recommend Martinelli or Havertz. But Trossard, look, he's been brilliant. I just think his minutes, a bit like Martinelli, to be fair, will be all over the place. Yeah, I'm probably going to say Havertz. Fewer options up front. You've got more alternatives in the midfield. And I just think both Martinelli and Trossard will sometimes be on the bench, especially when certain players come back. UCL match day next week will be chaos. Rank will be up and down in 90 minutes. Yeah, don't look at your rank. Just enjoy the football if you can. I'll be watching Arsenal and maybe putting another game on another monitor and stuff like that and enjoying the football. So yeah, Stupinian and Odegaard not in the squad. Yeah, you're right. There's a few players I kind of forgot to mention, like Marino, and as you say, Stupinian and Odegaard. I think Boniface is good and realistic option for Arsenal. Key point being at the moment, as I don't think there are many mercurial strikers on the market. He is fairly injury prone though. Whenever I cover UCL fantasy and the injury doubts, it seems like Boniface is always one of them, but it's better than nothing, isn't he? But I just want Arsenal to find that lethal goal scorer who will start week in, week out and push them over the line. That's my dream. I saw Veltman for Trent this week. Would like Everton to continue their form, please. Come on, man. I need something from Veltman. Come on. I just need anything from him. Diaz starts and Gakpo. Yes, he is. Yeah, yes, they are. FPL, Tony usually good. Maybe a last-minute issue. It looks like it was FPL Tony calling Nunez. It was obviously wrong. Yeah, look. There are some reliable sources that will get it wrong from time to time, and there can be late changes in the lineup, but yeah, that's why there's always a slight risk with these things, isn't it? Outside of Pickford, why are people looking at Everton players? It's because of Leicester at home, isn't it? And also the fact it's a double. The fixtures afterwards are fairly decent, like Crystal Palace away isn't too shabby, but I get your concern. I mean, Endai or Calvert-Lewin, do you need to rush into them? Definitely not. But Mykolenko, look, in my case, why am I considering Mykolenko? Because Colwill is useless, and he's probably going to be back today, to be fair, but yeah, he's on the chopping block. Veltman himself, he's been in my team for far too long, and I can get a double Gameweek player, so it makes sense. So I do understand why some people are looking to get a second or third Everton asset, but it's not essential. An Arsenal fan with no Arsenal players. Mate, in UCL Fantasy, I sold all of them. Absolutely all of them. And with Gabriel, it wasn't ideal, but it was my only route to Trent. I had the exact funds to do Gabriel to Trent and Jackson to Gakpo on Monday night. I pulled the trigger. Either jinx Liverpool or get points. I'm a happy man either way. Thoughts on Garnacho and Nkunku swap deal, United and Chelsea? It's interesting, right? It seems like both clubs are doing a bit of business between themselves, obviously with Jadon Sancho earlier this season. I don't know. I need to see more. I need to see if it actually goes ahead. Maybe it will fit them. But it does look like Man United are willing to sell a player like Garnacho or one of these youngsters for FFP reasons and stuff. I mean, there are reports that indicate they could be in a bit of trouble, actually. Yeah, and Winner is creative. He's good on the ball, very good to watch. What I like about him is that he drives with the ball. He's a good ball progressor compared to maybe Odegaard, for example, you could say. But he's very brave on the ball. That's what I like about him. Pickford, Mykolenko, and Ndai are the only Everton assets I'm considering. That's fair. I think Tarkovsky and Young might be better than Mykolenko, but in terms of budget, the value is certainly there with the Ukrainian. You don't want Arteta to rush Saliba back, though. It's something Arteta would do. I'm not sure. I mean, Arteta sometimes rush players back, yes, but I think sometimes he is quite careful with it. He has several flaws as a manager, but I don't think he has that in terms of rushing players back instantly. I think if Saliba is available and like fully ready, you know, I think that's why he's in the lineup, not because, oh, he's at 70%, but we need him. I'm not sure if that's the case. I mean, he missed 2 games recently against Villa. Really big game, by the way. And if Saliba plays that, I think Arsenal win. I really think that, but it is what it is. I'm a bit confused with this Nunez stuff. Were there any major accounts suggesting he was set to start? Apparently FPL Tony. I haven't seen it myself, but people in the live chat have said FPL Tony was one of them. I think Asim LFC, who's also, I'm not sure if it's a big account, but yeah, I'm sure I heard that these two were the ones that pushed the news. Is this the first time in a while you've gone without an Arsenal player in your FPL team? Yeah, probably a few years actually. Since Arsenal have been good, I've nearly always had an Arsenal player. And don't get me wrong, I can go back to Gabriel fairly soon. But it's liberating, you know? I can watch an Arsenal game and not worry about the FPL repercussions. Maybe I'm just easing my own ego, I guess, or reassuring myself, because it's going to be difficult not having Gabriel. I think he can do really well today, I'm not going to lie. Thank you, Chase. Have a great day too. I reckon Marmoush to score today. I mean, he's in my lineup for FPL Challenge. I mean, by league phase rank in real life. Oh, yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, it goes both ways, doesn't it? But yeah, that's going to be interesting. It's like a final day of the season for the relegation battle or a title race, I guess. I had Marmoush in my AFCON fantasy. Fair enough. I'll never forgive the club if they let Garnacho go. Flipping ridiculous. He's a raw talent. I mean, he's got a lot of pace and he can be decent on the ball, but I'm not so sure. They might have to, though. Maybe Man United have to sell a player, and it might not be ideal, but Garnacho could be the one. Let's wait and see, though. Yeah, I think Jacques is still missed, yeah. I mean, I said at the time when he was, like, hated by the Arsenal fan base, or most of them, I think Jacques was a good player, just played in the wrong position. He's slow. You don't want to play him as the lone DM, do you? But he's one of the best midfielders in Europe, I think. I think Marino's a good midfielder, but maybe not exactly what Arsenal need in that position. He's probably like a squad player. But I don't think he's terrible like people say. I think that's a lack of ball knowledge, as they say. Yeah, don't worry, just a parky. But look, everyone makes mistakes, right? It was FPL Tony and another source. I don't know who. Yeah, I think it was Asim FPL. That was mentioned before in the live chat. Yeah, I think Semenyo could haul. He scored in the reverse fixture back in Gameweek 1, but am I going to start him over Salah, Mbumo, Palmer, Gordon? No. Any of my forwards? Chris Wood is a debate, but probably not. Goldhead, you'll have been operating at a loss for the past 5 years. It's all these expensive transfers for middling returns. The only way forward is player sales at the moment. Yeah, you could be right. I think it's because of the spending. I think that's the only reason why Garnacho would pretty much be sold or loaned out. Yeah, I'm not sure who twisted the parker. We can talk about that later in the reaction stream, but look, they made a mistake. Luckily enough, I didn't go for Diaz, but you're going to have that headache with any Liverpool attacker, bar Salah. I don't mind selling Garnacho if we get someone better and someone who works better in Amorim's system. Our fans are just way over the top in everything. Yeah, look, football is a game of opinions, right? I think in terms of who's got the highest ceiling in that United squad, I don't think Garnacho's got the highest, but it'd be one of the highest ones there, especially amongst attackers. It would be a shame, I think, for some United fans, but ultimately, sacrifices have to be made. Morning, mate. Late night for me. Missed the deadline. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. Was planning to roll anyway and then go aggressive with 4 free transfers next game week. Sometimes missing a deadline can work in your favour, and it sort of is a blessing in disguise, so to speak. So hopefully it is for you as well. Went early as well with Lewis to Mikalenko and JP to Gakpo. I like those moves. I think Lewis to Mikalenko could have been done next week, I mean, from my perspective, but you could argue Mikalenko's better this week. Rico Lewis against Chelsea. Apparently he's benched anyway. Nkunku for Garnacho, no way. Mudryk got banned, says 7. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. Potential ban for him. Garnacho has no first touch. I'd rather have Mudryk. I think Garnacho's better, but look, Mudryk looked much better at Shakhtar Donetsk. He's lost a lot of confidence at Chelsea. I think at Arsenal he could have done really well, potentially. I'm surprised they wanted to splash that much money on him. But yeah, I think Garnacho's better. All the best for the week, Dylan. Likewise, Callum Jr., I'll let you guys and girls know, but there is a possibility it will be tomorrow instead. But if I am available today, it will be done on Saturday tonight. Rashford, stay or leave? Oh, probably a leave, right? I mean, he's been omitted from the squad on multiple occasions. I'd be surprised if he stays. Thank you, John G. Hi, Dylan. Love the new channel graphics. I'm leaning towards Iraola as my assistant manager in Gameweek 24-26. Liverpool at home with a chance to get table bonus, then Southampton and Wolves. That's a really good shout. I still think Liverpool get a result, and their record against Bournemouth is brilliant. I know it was earlier this season, but they beat Bournemouth 3-0 at Anfield. I don't think it'll be that convincing or comprehensive. I think Bournemouth are in a better position now, but yeah, that's always going to be a risk. That's the point of it, right? High risk, high reward. It's definitely an entertaining option. I'd consider it for sure. I probably won't go there myself, though, but I like it. David Moyes is another one, of course, for Gameweek 24 as well. Then you can switch to Iraola in 25 or 26. I agree, Goldhead, but the issue is that with Garnacho being an academy product, he gets the maximum profit. The remaining players, save for Ahmad, have no real value. Yeah, you both make good points, I think. But yeah, Goldhead just doesn't accept it. No. Rashford to Dortmund with Adeyemi to Napoli. There's going to be a lot of transfer reports at the moment and links. I try to avoid them, to be fair. It can be interesting, you know, imagining a player at a certain club, but as an Arsenal fan, I've learned to kind of numb myself to that sort of thing. Wow, Garnacho should be playing for Elche. I think that's a bit harsh. I mean, I've said from the beginning, as an Argentinian myself, I'm not a big fan of Garnacho. I think he's raw, he's got potential, but he is missing that decision-making and consistency. How will Arsenal get Isak realistically if Newcastle qualify for the Champions League? It will be more difficult for sure, but I think the consensus is that Isak will leave very soon, either this summer or the next. And fair enough, taking Newcastle to Champions League is very impressive. They could even win Carabao Cup this season, but if he joins Arsenal, he can be part of a Premier League winning squad, winning 2-3 trophies over the next couple of years. And I do think this Arsenal team is that one or two signing away, or should I say one or two signings away from greatness. So, look, it's all debatable. I think Newcastle are a good team. And in terms of recent form, they're arguably better than Arsenal, but not in the grand scheme of things. And I do think you can convince them to join Arsenal, get Champions League football consistently, and win the biggest trophies, which I think Isak will be the difference maker in order to get those objectives. Yeah, Madrid got his ban, it looks like. Yeah, I think Zubimendi can survive in the Premier League. Wei Seng, lack of physicality, but he's got the technical ability, the football IQ, which is very important in a midfielder. Chelsea know how to make players lose their confidence. You can say that about a few clubs, to be fair, but yeah, don't disagree with you. Easy says, as a Chelsea fan, we like to sell Nkunku like we sell Mount. We get benefit with Garnacho. Fair enough. Let's wait and see, though. I mean, I saw the Nkunku reports very recently. The next few days are going to be very hectic in the January transfer window. Yeah, Nkunku's injury history isn't great. If the reaction stream is tomorrow, will it be after the Fulham United game? They typically are after all the games are done, basically. So after the last Sunday game, yeah, that would be the plan. So if it's not today, it would be, if I can get it up, let's see. So yeah, after Fulham United, yeah, it is quite late though, 7 p.m. It'll be a 9 p.m. reaction stream. That's why ideally it would be today, but if I can't do it, then I just can't do it. So I'll keep you posted on that anyway. Are Arsenal really going to pay 100 million plus for Isak? They should. That's the key thing. They should. People talking about Garnacho as if he was meant to be a world beater. He's also only 19, 20. You're right. That's what I mean. He's a raw talent. He's got potential, but yeah, I just don't think... I think he was overhyped by some United fans, I know. And that's typical, right? You know, that's nothing wrong with bigging up your own players. You know, we all do it. But I was never that keen on Garnacho myself, but he's got time on his side. Don't you worry he becomes the next Fabio Vieira, says Wei Sing. I don't think so. And Fabio Vieira has qualities that Arsenal lack now. Very good in the final third with that pass, the through balls, and also he can score a goal from outside the box. I don't think Fabio Vieira is bad, by the way. I actually wanted him to stay and be another option in the midfield and as a winger. I said it at the time, Arsenal loaned and sold too many players without replacing them, and that's why they're in this situation. It's very poor transfer planning, and that summer window was pretty abysmal, actually, I'd say. Big up to you, Dylan. The consistency of these streams is impeccable. Much respect. Thank you very much, Rai. I appreciate it. Where's the difference between Arsenal clean sheet odds this season and last? I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'd say they are probably low at this moment in time with all the injuries, and also I think the underlying stats are slightly worse, but it's still the best in the league, defensively anyway. Well, Nelson is injured himself, right? But yeah, if he was available, he's better than Sterling. And it's a shame to say that because I think Sterling, there are reports he's suffering a crisis of confidence, and I want him to do well, but it's just never a good signing. Garnacho's best moment is the bicycle kick last season. I'm becoming a CR7 fan. He's always been a Ronaldo fan, to be fair, and a lot of people are. Yeah, that bicycle kick was amazing. What do you think about Naipan, Dylan? Well, there are clips about him. It looks like he's ambidextrous, really good with both feet, and that kind of Sonny Cazorla type player. 18-year-old, he'd be part of the setup, you know, being on the bench, getting some minutes, a few starts here and there. It looks like he's got a really high ceiling, but I'll admit, I haven't seen much of him, but I want Arsenal to get some players in. So get Naipan, get Zubameni in the summer, get 2 attackers now, and then get Isak in the summer as well. I want Arsenal to be ambitious and really push on all fronts. But I've said that for like 20 years now, and look at the results. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. It has been a very long one, 3 hours, you know. It's about time we cut it off, right? But I appreciate those tuning in for this time, liking the video, subscribing. If you haven't already, then be sure to do so. Hitting that notification bell in the process so you never miss a single FPL or UCL fantasy stream or video. And check all the links in the description below for my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. You can call it X. I mean, we all call it Twitter, right? There's also my Blue Sky, the Discord server, FPL League Draft Hound, and Spotify. So check all those links there in the description. And it has been a pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you, Sudnika. I'll see you very soon. Thank you, Mohit. Hope you get the reaction stream today, honestly. I want to watch the championship round of the NFL playoffs. I get that. And look, if I can, I will. But there's no guarantee. Told you loaning Sterling to you guys is a scam. He's finished since the end of his City career. I mean, yeah, even last season when he scored a hat-trick against Burnley, I just didn't rate him. I just didn't. And he was a really good player at City and Liverpool, but yeah, his best days are unfortunately behind him. I hope he can do something for Arsenal, score a big goal, but it's not looking good. Thank you, Genius Gamer. I appreciate it. And good luck, Richard Millichip, and everyone else watching, Jellyfish Potter and Sudnika. Thank you very much for your support. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and news fantasy content. Keep your eyes peeled for Matchday 8 videos, like the best wildcard and limitless team video, probably rolled into one, the team selection, and the deadline stream on Wednesday. Take care, enjoy the football. I'll see you very soon for more content, and I hope you have a great green arrow, and just enjoy the football, of course. Take care.